All the Right Movies.
Dirk Diggler's bright shining light blazes through the LA porn scene as he heads up Jack Horner's adult empire. It all threatens to fall apart in a haze of drugs and violence, but Dirk's surrogate family stick together through thick and thin. Controversy surrounded Paul Thomas Anderson's dazzling odyssey through the golden age of porn prior to release, but critics and audiences embraced it, making PTA the new wunderkind director of the 90s. My name is Luke, and with me are Brock Landers, aka Westy.
I want a name, something that can cut glass, razor sharp. Like, when I close my eyes, I see this big sign, and this name, it's bright blue neon lights with purple outline, and the name is just so bright and so sharp, and the sign, it just blows up because the name is so powerful. It says, Westy.
And Chest Rockwell, aka Matt.
My fucking wife, man, she's down there, some idiot's dicking her, everybody's standing around watching.
All the right movies like simple pleasures, like butter in our ass and lollipops in our mouth. But that's just us. That's just something that we enjoy. Call us crazy, call us perverts. But we know one thing, we're not the king of Dirk. Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, a podcast on classic and hit films with a great big reputation. Today we're delving into the murky waters of 70s porn industry as we discuss the dysfunctional family unit of Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights.
Oh yeah.
A very big one.
Yeah.
Now before we get into it, we have got an important announcement, so listen up. Unfortunately, we've lost a key member of our team. PI has decided to wrap on ATRM, so we're now a four-wheeler. Obviously, PI will be a huge miss, but we're all still great pals. And what up to PI if he's listening? What up, PI? He's not listening, is he?
He's not listening. No.
PI.
No.
So because our resources reduced, we've decided to suspend the podcast and put all of our time into YouTube. So this will be the very last podcast by us, and we'll be moving to YouTube. You might have seen some of our YouTube videos, which are great, very high class.
Very high class. Oh, always, yeah, on videotape.
That's the future.
Yes, it is.
Although we're very sad to see PI go and not to be bringing you podcasts every 2 weeks, we are really excited about this new venture where we'll be doing a number of different videos. Among other things, going up regularly will be episodes of The Cutting Room. That's where we discuss a film similar to what we do here and decide whether it makes the cut or is left on the cutting room floor. So you'll get to see our ugly mugs on a regular basis over on YouTube, and we're aiming to get those up every 2 weeks as well, just like the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It means we can start again. We can revisit films that we've already done. It's a new snappy format. So, you get to see clips of the films, what's not alike.
Exactly.
It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been re-listening to some of our earlier stuff and, Jaws, Ghostbusters, The Terminator, they need a redo.
Yes. Yeah. Unlistenable.
Unprofessional.
Yeah.
But, do sign up for Patreon so you can listen to those unlistenable early episodes.
Compare and contrast.
Compare and contrast, obviously. See where we came from, where it started.
Which was nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Recorded it on a potato by the sounds of it.
So we understand some of you may not use YouTube, so if you become an ATRM Patreon supporter, that thing again, you won't miss out. We are going to make the audio from all of our YouTube videos available to all of our patrons. So basically, they're going to be podcasts. And this will include all past and future episodes of The Cutting Room, all past and future episodes of our interview show, Life in Movies, any other videos that we may do, and we've got some good ideas, and all of the audio podcasts and interviews that we've done over the last 3 years or so. Yep. In total, there's an archive of 121 episodes available now. That's available right now.
Yeah. And always will be. So,
always.
You're not losing anything by signing up. You're always gaining, if anything.
Gaining 121 times.
Yeah, exactly.
If that wasn't enough, we'll create an additional exclusive Cutting Room video only for our patrons every month, and the audio from that will be made available as well.
Yeah. Loads of
changes.
content.
Big changes.
But still loads of content available. A list bigger than Dirk Diggler's cock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our presence will be bigger than Diggler's dick.
A beautiful thing.
And your support on Patreon would really help us out. So go to patreon.com/alltherightmovies to sign up. I mean, as soon as you want to.
Yeah. Absolutely. We won't charge you $10 just to listen to it either.
Well, pretty much we will. Monthly.
All right, won't charge you $20. It's worth it.
Okay, back to business then, fellas. For the last time, Matt, why do you want to talk about Boogie Nights?
Because they are always the best in town.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
He saved the best to last, doesn't he? All the big ones.
All the jokes have been dying to get in here. Even if it's about like the Untouchables, I've got it in here somehow.
Yeah, it's all there.
Yep, all there. No, this one, I think, first of all, there's a list of directors who we need to cover on Classic before we wrap it up, and Paul Thomas Anderson is definitely on that list. And he's made a few films we could have covered, but for me, he's one of those filmmakers where to properly understand him, you go back to the beginning. And I know this isn't his debut. That's Hard Eight. That was a couple of years prior to this. But this is the first one where you had complete control. So it makes sense to come to this film. And secondly, this film came out in a period that I've got a huge affection for, which is that late 90s period. I just turned 19, so there was no restrictions on what I could go and see at the cinema anymore or what I could rent. And it was like the floodgates opened. And it just seemed to coincide with all these new voices in cinema. So Tarantino, Danny Boyle, Spike Jonze, and PTA was very much part of that. In this film made me feel like what it must have been like to be in the 70s watching the likes of The French Connection and Apocalypse Now. It felt like this is a film for my generation that really felt like it was going to be talked about for decades. And indeed, here we are.
Excellent. Well, it's, obviously a really important film in the history of cinema. PTA's second film, like you said, and one that really made people stand up and take note. But not for me. I saw it when it came out on VHS because of all the buzz surrounding it, but never went back to it until I revisited it about 4 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just didn't get pulled into it, so I had only seen it twice before we decided to talk about it today. So I don't have a history with it, no nostalgia, and I was pretty much a blank canvas going into it for this, so I'll save my thoughts for later to keep you in suspense.
Ooh. Nice.
But fittingly, the film does celebrate its 25th anniversary later in the year, so we're keeping it relevant.
Yeah, of course.
What about you, Westy?
I'm the same as you, Luke, to be honest. This was one that I never really felt like I could engage with at the time when it came out. It always felt like a bit of a parody to me. Because I was into more, at that time, 97, so we're talking what Pulp Fiction, we're talking about Soderbergh, we're talking about Tarantino, we're talking about, this kind of like real video store directors who are coming out. And I know PTA was one of them, but to me, this material never really interested me. It didn't really seem like it was going to be something that I could engage with. It just seemed a bit throwaway.
Not a big porn guy.
Well, I'm a huge porn guy, but I didn't really know it was about that because it was just like Boogie Nights. So I just thought it was like one of them 70s kind of, I wasn't into like disco music at the time. I was quite serious. OK Computer had just come out. I was listening to Radiohead. I don't want to go watch Boogie Nights. You know what I mean?
Okay,
it was just
right.
It was that kind of vibe. So for me, it kind of went under the radar a little bit. And since then, it is a really important film. I know how important it is to cinema and how influential it is to a lot of filmmakers, how influential it was and how much he was compared to Tarantino. But it's almost like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. And I was like, I'm Tarantino, and just made us kind of ignore this.
You made your choice.
Yeah, and I just, for that reason, I kind of ignored it. And like you, I hadn't seen it for a very, very long time. I saw it about 2 years after it came out, watched it, didn't really hit home, and it just sat on the shelf for years and years and years. And I came back to it pretty much a blank canvas again. I'd forgotten a lot of it. I watched it again, and I'll save it for as we go through and as we talk about it. And that's 2 in suspense, and obviously Matt loves it, so we'll see where we go.
Oh, yes. Excellent. A lot of drama there. Boogie Nights was written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and shot on location in LA. Produced by PTA, Joanne Seller, Lloyd Levin and John Lyons for Lawrence Gordon Productions and distributed by New Line Cinema. Released on October 10th, 1997, it has an ensemble cast including Mark Wahlberg, Burt Reynolds, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, Don Cheadle, William H. Macy, Heather Graham and Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yep.
We're headed to Los Angeles' beautiful San Fernando Valley for the start of Boogie Nights.
The beginning.
That little instrumental piece you heard from the start of the film was put in specifically by PTA to bookend the film. You can hear it at the end as well. Mm-hmm. He wanted this kind of like broken circus tone, which sounded like a funeral dirge, to then kick into this amazing disco number, Best of My Love by the Emotions.
Yeah.
And then bang, we're in 1977 at Hot Tracks nightclub. This is our first scene, and Westy, you're going to get the ball rolling here.
Yeah, I'll get the ball rolling. The way this opens, I know PTA had some trouble with the title of Hard 8, and he was kind of fighting with that, so he just put Boogie Nights up there in lights, right? You can't really change the title of this film. That's what it is. And the camera cranes down and it moves around, and you've got this. It's an incredible, incredible piece of work, this. And no pun intended, but this is a really cocky film. This is a really, it's a really pretentious, jumped up little bastard. And you can tell he's just so confident in what he's doing, where the camera's going. He's all of his characters, all of the performances. He knows everybody. He knows how to direct everybody. He knows where everybody's going. Even from that hug that Guzman gives Reynolds at the start, and the camera just moves around seamlessly, and then it's in the club and it tracks back, and it's just moving around everybody. And you're introduced to all of the characters in one shot. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, well, that's an obvious kind of Goodfellas reference to that tracking shot going into the restaurant.
Yeah.
But then I've looked into it a little bit more, and I thought the film popped into my head from 1992, which is The Player by Robert Altman.
Sure.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And that, the way that introduces every single character, that tracking shot at the opening of that film, that's 8 minutes long.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it?
And I think that was far more of an influence on PTA of where he's coming from, and he's kind of getting these real giants of cinema and almost trying to reinvent it with like this neon kind of real vibey fast twist. And this shot really does show you exactly what this film is and how confident it is, and it just zips along from this moment. There's so many of these shots, like in nearly every scene where you introduce new characters or a new situation, there's one of these tracking shots as if it's just easy.
I know.
It's one of the hardest things to do. It's one of the hardest things to choreograph, to block, to light, where you don't see any of the lights in the shot, and it's 360, it's all the way around, and it's moving through different scenes and different scenarios. And it's just really, really brilliant the way it introduces every character, and they get enough time for you to discover who they are.
Exactly,
even though it's just a fleeting moment, but nobody's wasted. You kind of see everybody. I just think the opening of this film is seriously one of the most confident openings to any film that I've ever seen, from almost a first-time director, to have complete control over everything and have cast and crew like this big, and to do this is just absolutely mind-blowing. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Just the staging and the blocking of that 3-minute tracking shot.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Mind-boggling. Anderson said, I saw the valley the way that David Lean saw the desert in Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah. And he did that shot when Burt Reynolds drives the car in, and the camera cranes down and then follows them in. And he said to Burt Reynolds, he was like, wasn't that amazing? And Burt Reynolds was like, I can name 50 films that have that same shot. Like, you're not doing anything new.
Liar.
Yeah, but Paul Thomas Anderson kind of felt like he was doing something brand new. And what he's doing is he's reinventing cinema almost in a slick way, in a stylish way, in a really accessible way, like Matt said, for a younger generation.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Goodfellas and The Player there, Robert Altman and Martin Scorsese, surely the two biggest influences on PTA in this film.
Yeah, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt,
No doubt.
That camera work, it's insanely good, but I do particularly like the introduction of Roller Girl and then Little Bill when they go to see Jack and Amber at the table, because first of all, Roller Girl, it's that first glimpse you get into that mother-daughter relationship that just got going on with Amber when she's talking to Amber, and Amber's like, don't forget to call that woman about the things. If you don't keep the appointment, you're going to miss out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then she can see there's something wrong with the way Roller Girl is standing. She's like, right, what's wrong with you? And she goes, well, I have to go pee. So she's still such... go then. So she's still such a child, which is obviously a bit disturbing considering what she's going to do later on in the film. But it's the first hint you get at what is the big theme in the film, which is that it's about family in this collection of people, or family, and they're the mother and daughter. But then I love Little Bill as well, because straight away you see he is that guy. You know, you're in this great nightclub, everyone's having an amazing time, and he's worrying about work the next day. Hassling Jack about it. Which scene are we doing? What are we doing? Who's involved? What's going on?
I got to ring Scotty. I got to ring these guys.
Just can't relax for a minute. And I think it's an amazing mullet and tash combo from Macy.
That's huge.
It's wonderful. And I don't know if it's deliberate, but he kind of bumps into someone in the scene.
Yeah,
like really
totally accidental.
It's totally accidental. And that's just like Macy to a T. I think it's fantastic as well. And I know he was reluctant to take the part at first because he was sick, he said, of being the go-to guy for losers in films after Fargo. PTA screened Hard 8 for him, and Macy watched it and rang him up and said, dude, I'll do the yellow pages if you want after seeing it.
Nice. Amazing.
Fantastic. Lovely. Well, I want to talk about the moment that Eddie and Jack first see each other.
Yeah.
I think there is something sexual about the exchange that Eddie and Jack have. They see each other over the club, and it goes into slow-mo. And it's almost like they're both locking eyes on the person who's going to change their life. And that's exactly how it turns out, kind of for better or worse.
Yeah.
And in the kitchen scene, Jack asks why he doesn't get a job washing dishes in Torrance, his hometown. Why take the bus all the way here? He knows there's something bringing him to LA. It's where all the depravity happens, where he can get his thing out for $5 and people are queuing up to see it. So in Jack's mind, I suppose if people are going to pay $5 or $10, then they'll spend money on seeing it on the big screen. He knows he's got something on his hands. So that, for me, sets up this world under the glitz and glam of the club with all the beautiful people. There's a seedy underbelly just out the back, and a kind of a metaphor for the film. I really like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you need all that bass. I mean, if you want a system to handle what you want, yeah, you need the bass.
After this scene, we catch glimpses of all the key players' personal lives. Amber, Eddie, Roller Girl, Little Bill and his adulterous wife, Buck and the fabled TK421.
You need that bass.
Oh, you definitely need that bass.
A TK41, that's named after a stormtrooper, isn't it? In Star Wars. Yeah. Brilliant.
Jack and Eddie have a meeting. They go back to Jack, and Eddie shows off his prowess with Roller Girl. He then quickly leaves home after a blazing argument with his mother. And our next sequence is the pool party at Jack's, where we learn more about this family of porn.
Really sinister the way you said
family of porn.
Well, not me. It's the film. I'm just saying it as is. And I'm going to kick us off here, and I want to talk about the Colonel.
Yes.
In this scene, but in general.
Mm-hmm.
A very complicated character to discuss because of what we find out later about his hideous activities. He hauled his ass in jail.
Yeah.
And on rewatches, that really resonates in this scene because he shows up at this party with a girl who looks really, really young.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it's a good bet that she's underage, which obviously is hideous. And the first thing she says, the only thing she talks about is getting some coke. And the next time we see her, she's OD'd and her limp body is dragged out of the party and going to be dumped at some hospital somewhere, potentially left for dead. And this is the story that the Colonel tells Jack when he gets arrested later on. It's another girl, but it's pretty much a carbon copy of what happens in this scene. So how many girls has he done this to? Get them coked out of their mind and then take advantage of them.
Yeah.
So although the subject matter is really grim in the film, the tone for the most part is light and often hilarious, but there are also these unspoken moments that aren't really explicit in the film, like this one, which give the film a lot of sinister, kind of unpalatable layers when you come to rewatch it and you come to think about the implications of this scene and that scene, although it's never shown on screen or talked about.
Yeah.
And I think that happens a lot.
A more upbeat tone is when John C. Reilly and Mark Wahlberg finally meet. And what a joy that is. And we'll get into this with the writing, and I think the dialogue, especially in this bit, is just so good. It is just back and forth. But it's John C. Reilly, just pure John C. Reilly. This is just almost inventing himself. He's inventing himself in front of your eyes. You're just like, this guy is electric. He's amazing. And Wahlberg's brilliant in this scene as well. And it's just like, what do you squat? And they're just like this back and forth. It's like, do you want a margarita?
Super.
Super. You know, it's like 3.5. It's just absolutely brilliant. Turns at every single guy. He's like, do you work out at... No, I would have seen you. I'm there every day. Absolutely brilliant. Wants the margarita and he's like drinking the tequila out the bottle as he's pouring it in.
Slug. Great.
Just them little bits. And just as he kind of like flicks that blender on and he's just leaning on top of it, he's like, can't hear you. You know, he's just trying to be cool and he's trying to be hip. And it's just great, like all the way through this whole sequence in the house party. I mean, there's a great tracking shot, which we've discussed at the top of the film. It happens again here. It goes right the way around the party and you kind of see everyone, then it happens again. So you've just got this real kind of movement. And this, for me, is when it kind of hits home what kind of film this is going to be. There's that exchange between them two, which holds the film together for me. It's that kind of glue that they've got in their relationship. I think it really, really works, from that to the pool scene when they're kind of competing with each other and they're just jumping in and doing different... That's just so funny.
Full flip.
Full flip. You got to put your legs all the way around. He's like, yeah, oh, and he's just underneath the water, like grimacing. You just think, well, that shouldn't really work. It should just be like, why has it gone from one tone to the other tone? And it's not. It's just a young director who really is having loads of fun with this. That sequence between him, that exchange between John C. Reilly and Mark Wahlberg when them characters first meet each other, I just think it's absolutely fantastic.
They're best friends immediately. People tell me I look like Han Solo. Really?
Yeah. You seen Star Wars? Yeah, like 100 times.
Incredible.
Yeah.
The shot that goes around the pool in at the water and out was influenced by that insane one-take shot from I Am Cuba. If you haven't seen that, it's something else. We've tweeted about it a couple of times. It's got a huge reaction as well because it's outstanding.
Yeah, it's unreal.
PTA said that he was very proud that we came back up out of the pool for dialogue.
Yeah.
Really complex shot.
Oh, really complex shot. Ridiculous. And the soundtrack as well in this whole sequence is so good.
Well, it's one of the music choices I want to talk about because when that sequence you get when Lonely Boy plays, I think it's fantastic.
Oh, yes.
I love
Andrew
that
Gould.
sequence.
Yeah,
Andrew Gould, because, I mean, first of all, how on earth Don Cheadle and Louise Guzman kept a straight face during the sequence, I don't know. So they stood up having this really serious chat, both of them buttoned to the waist, obviously.
Yeah,
Cheadle's wearing this like cowboy suit kind of thing. Yeah. But it's Guzman, that like yellow number that looks like your grand's curtains. And the thing is, right, like Cheadle's in decent shape, you know.
Yeah.
But Guzman,
great Nick.
Guzman, not a huge gut, just hanging out, dog tax. Like, it doesn't care. It doesn't
give a shit.
Yeah, it doesn't give a shit. It's hilarious. But it's then it turns out because like that phone keeps ringing and ringing, and he answers, and it's someone looking for Maggie. And it turns out, it's someone's mother. So, right, well, I better go and find her. But no one knows who Maggie is. And it's actually quite sad when you think about it, because that's Amber, and no one knows Amber's real name. They only know her by a persona. And I just love that pushing you get on Julianne Marsh's snorting the coke. Yeah. And the song ramps up, and she looks up, and she doesn't have a clue that her son's wanting to find her, despite the fact earlier on in the film, she was desperate to speak to her on the phone.
Yeah. She's in a different place, just playing a totally different person. It's that as well. Yeah. It's really, really brilliant visual storytelling. Yeah, where it's like, it's just some kid looking for a mom, and then it cuts straight to her, like doing a line of coke. You just go, that's who he's talking about then. Brilliant.
Yeah. Not pushing. And then you can see she's more concerned with Dirk outside, eyeing him up. Down
Exactly. Yeah. Her attention is focused now on Eddie because she's the kid. She wants to mother him. She's forgotten about her actual kid. Horrendous. Yeah. And I suppose she only goes back to her biological child when Dirk kicks off and leaves the business.
Yeah.
I must also mention this moment with little Bill and his wife when she's having the second of her bonkathons. Yeah. You might have noticed that little Bill says, and you know, for the listener, here's a warning, cover your ears for the easily offended. He says, my fucking wife has an ass in her cock. And that wasn't scripted. Macy got his words mixed up, but Anderson decided to keep it in. When he came back to the rewatch on this, I had to rewind it a few times. I was thinking, ass in cock? What's he talking about? Did he actually say that?
It's because the character's so flustered as well, isn't it? Yeah, but she's played by Nina Hartley, who's like a real life porn star, and she took like William H. Macy on a few sets just so we could understand like the whole vibe of everything that was going on. But she's actually brilliant.
She is
in the film. Good. Like she's just, her performance is just fantastic.
Oh, she's great.
Wouldn't expect her to be that good, but she is actually brilliant.
PTA was a big fan of her work and thought she'd be able to give some pointers to the cast about shooting a porn scene, but things got a little wild there for a moment. Obviously, Hartley up to her old tricks. She was often walking around the set naked, like porn sets.
Yeah.
Instead of simulating the sex scenes, she wanted to do them for real to speed things up, but obviously she couldn't do that. But Robert Elsbeth, the DP, swears blind that she was actually having sex in one of the scenes, but obviously she's denied this.
Yeah. I know who I trust.
Do you know what Hartley gave people as a leaving gift when shooting Wrapped?
Yeah, she gave them like a copy of each of her films, didn't she? What did she give to Macy? Which one was it?
It was a deluxe box set about anal penetration starring herself.
Deluxe box set.
Deluxe box set. That's how it's described.
Deluxe butt set.
Nina Hartley's Guide to Anal Sex, a classic.
I'm sure Macy used that going forward. Thanks, that'll come in handy.
Wow. So at the end of the scene, blowing up in neon lettering, Eddie chooses a name which can cut glass. Dirk Diggler. Not Westy.
Not Westy, obviously. No, that'd be shit.
That was second choice.
Yeah.
Not too sure. Should we go Westy or Dirk Diggler?
The director.
As is often the case with films where the writer and director are the same, the story, the screenplay, and the direction in Boogie Night is interlinked because it was written and directed by PTA. But we're focusing our attention solely on his work as director on Boogie Nights in this section. Matt, what do you think of his work here?
He's 26 when he makes this.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
26. This film has such scope and so many moving parts to it. And it's exactly what Westy said. This film is cocky. And it does have a youthful arrogance to it because he's basically gone, I can handle all this. Amazing soundtrack, incredible camera setups, a huge cast of veteran actors. Yeah, I can do all that. Yeah. And the thing is, he does. But when I say there's an arrogance to it, I don't mean in an off-putting way. I just mean in the way that he's just so confident in what he can do that he just doesn't have any doubt about the fact that he can pull all this off.
It's arrogant, but it's not pretentious.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's why the film keeps me on its side, because it doesn't alienate me. And all these things that he's putting in this film, this huge cast, the soundtrack, the camera setups, it's all in a film about the porn industry as well. So it's not as even if he's picked an easy thing to make a film about.
Yeah, exactly.
And the film just has this whole energy to it, this verve, this sense of creativity. And through all these characters, all these like myriad of plot lines that are going on, he just keeps serving up like great scene after great scene after great scene. You get scenes that are tragic, scenes that are hilarious, scenes that are incredibly tense. But I think the thing that makes this film rewatchable for me is he never makes the film feel sleazy, which I think is really key. For films set in the porn industry, there's actually very little sex in this film. And what you do see, it isn't meant to be titillating, which I think is surprisingly mature from a 26-year-old making a film about the porn industry. So it's ultra confident, it has this style, it has this energy, but I do look at this film now with the perspective of knowing what Anderson is like now as a filmmaker, because we've mentioned already, it's obviously hugely influenced by Scorsese and Altman. And that's fine. We've all seen other filmmakers try to copy Scorsese, and they've done it nowhere near as well as what PTA does here. And Altman, you know, if it was easy to make films like Scorsese, everyone would make films like Scorsese. So it's not an easy thing what he's done here. It's just, it's not his voice yet. It's a 26-year-old going, oh, do you like Scorsese? Because I love Scorsese. And see what I can do, isn't this like Scorsese? And at that age, it's completely understandable. Because like I say, he's just in his 20s still. And if
I
you're
would
going
do that now. I'm 41.
Exactly, yeah. And if you're going to copy a master like that, at least do it as well as Boogie Nights. But with the perspective of knowing what films he would later do, I think this is the work of a highly, highly gifted mimic rather than someone who's got their own identity yet. And I get it, and that's going to come with age.
Okay. I will just reiterate something that you said as well there, Matt. 26.
26.
And it's not a low-key drama.
No.
Or anything like that. 2.5 hours. He wanted to make it longer.
Yeah.
Ensemble piece. Period piece about the porn industry.
Yeah.
That's a bold choice for your second feature as a 26-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I think you can tell his affection for the industry and the era because of the minute detail that he goes to make it authentic. Like the attitudes, the location, the dialogue, but most of all, the costume. The costumes are on fire in the film.
They're amazing.
They're out of control.
On point as well.
Oh, insane.
Every single kind of, year that is depicted, everything is on point. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. The majority of the wardrobe was picked up at this warehouse that had unused costumes from all eras, and they wound up spending about $15,000 at this place. And
Totally
they even
worth
picked
it.
out one of Sonny Bono's old stage costumes, which Cheadle wears in the film.
Nice.
Amazing.
Is it the one he wears with that wig?
Thinks he's Rick James.
It's original.
Good. I think it's pretty impressive that a film with this subject matter and this runtime just whizzes along.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a 2.5 hour film. No. And it's in the camera choices and the editing in a lot of the sections. The action is cross-cut with a number of different storylines playing out over the top of each other. I think really great storytelling, keeping things whizzing along at a fair pace, and all underpinned by a killer soundtrack as well. It's an explosion of a real talent in PTA. I go back to what you were saying, Matt. He has made more mature films, more complex films, but I don't think he's made a film as fun as this in his career.
No. I'd agree with
No.
that.
And just to pick out a tiny moment, there's this incredible moment that holds on Dirk for about a minute at Rahad Jackson's scene.
Yeah.
He goes from this drug-fueled out of his box to an awful realization of where his life is messed up. He's led him to this place, and then he snaps up, and it's time to leave. He realizes how messed up his life has become, and to get to this place, and it's
all
a
the
really
Jesse's
bold
girl
choice.
as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really bold choice to let the camera stay there static for that long, and almost certainly inspired by the lingering shot of Jimmy in Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Sunshine of Your Love.
Yeah.
But it's captivating. How much can you read from just that one shot?
Yeah. And he was told to cut that down, and then PTA said, no, that's the best shot in the film. You're 26 when he made this, but when he wrote the Dirk Diggler story, he was 17. Right? And he's written off Spinal Tap doing a short film about a guy in the porn industry, and I've watched that, and it is actually brilliant. It's really entertaining, and it does whip by, and to me, this has the same kind of pace, the same kind of tone, the same kind of excitement as something like Casino. But to me, it's just like he's just got too much to play with. He's trying to say too many things at once. It's just like a kid with just have too many sweets, too much coke. He's just talking. Slow down, find a story, find a pace, find a narrative, find an underlying point to it all. And I think that's my main problem with this is that a lot of it is style over substance. And a lot of the style does really work, and I don't think he's mature enough to understand what the substance is, what the context is, and what he's actually trying to say. I think it is quite a flawed film in that way, in that it is very flashy, it is very entertaining, it is very funny, it does really work, but really it's quite thin. But I think from a direction point of view, you cannot really say anything negative about it. It's just so confident. I don't know if he regrets the direction of this. I mean, if you spoke to him now, after he did like Phantom Thread, and you go, what do you think your direction on Boogie Nights? Think it was a bit over the top? He'd be like, yeah, I think it was a bit over the top. Think you did too much there, Paul? Did you? Yeah. Throw enough shit, some of it's got to stick. And it's just like, it's just an onslaught of just everything that you've got access to. Flashy. It's like going, if someone said to me, Westy, we're doing a film, right? It's going to be in LA, it's going to be a period piece, it's going to be about the porn industry. I'll be like, yes, right, get this, get the 35mm camera. Okay, we're gonna turn around, we're gonna flip that, we're gonna do like a real parody of like the 70s cop shows, and we're gonna make a real fucking thing of that. We're gonna shoot it on 35mm and project it, then just shoot it on the screen, and we're gonna make it look weird, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and yes, 3 hours long, yes. And I just felt like he was just like that, just fucking yes. For like, that's the vibe you get from it. Just a really excited, really talented young man. I don't think Paul Thomas Anderson is crafting a film here. I think he's just absolutely exploding a film here. It feels like he's had this built up for so long that he's just like, I am doing everything that's in my brain.
I wanted to do,
everything that's in my brain, and I'm making it as complicated as possible for everyone around us just because I need that kind of satisfaction. And the good thing about that is the direction really pays off for the audience. You're as satisfied as he is because you know he's not going to leave a scene until he is satisfied with it. It absolutely works. The direction of Boogie Nights is, there's nothing like it, I don't think.
Yeah, very, very vibrant, very exciting, really
very
exciting.
Very much.
Like Westy mentioned, the origin of Boogie Nights started in 1988 when he made the mockumentary short, The Dirk Diggler Story. It did have the characters Jack Warner, Reed Rothschild, was influenced by This Is Spinal Tap and inspired by porn actor John Holmes. It is available on YouTube if you're interested.
Yeah, it's worth a watch.
Recommend from Westy.
Yeah, it's worth a watch.
Do you know the guy who plays Dirk Diggler? Do you know he's in Boogie Nights?
Yeah, he's in the record store, isn't he, at the start?
Yeah, he's the guy who's trying to sell the Stereo 2.
Stereo 2,
Great. Yeah. PTA wanted to expand the story into a feature, and he got enough heat from his feature debut, Hard 8, to get studios interested in him as a talented director. New Line wanted to do a Miramax and were looking for their own Quentin Tarantino. And so PTA is their guy after reading his 300-page script about a porn actor with an enormous penis.
Mine would be like 2 pages long.
PTA was really frustrated about his experience on Hard 8, his debut. He laid down strict ground rules to New Line. It's going to be 3 hours and it's going to be an NC-17 rating. But they said, pick one of those. You can only have one of the two. So he decided that getting an R rating was going to be a challenge and that he was up to the challenge.
Yeah.
Right. He got inside the industry expertise in the shape of legendary porn actor Ron Jeremy, who advised on the film and even invited cast onto a real porn set to see how things went down. All of the cast accepted his invite, apart from Burt Reynolds, who said, "I know porn. I don't need to see that." Because PTA is a big porn guy, he had a stash of VHS tapes with porn bloopers and outtakes. I mean, who's got VHSs of bloopers and outtakes from pornography? That's mental.
It is mental. Probably had them since he was like 17 as well. Brilliant.
But he used those as inspiration for some of the lighter moments in the film. And the doc within the film, directed by Amber Waves, was based on the 1981 documentary Exhausted, John C. Holmes' The Real Story. And the I Do My Own Blocking bit was pretty much word for word.
Nice.
All right.
In a touching moment, the actress who plays Eddie's mother, Joanna Gleason, when she was at the reading, she asked PTA if the scene between her and Wahlberg was based on his own experiences with his mother. And he went quiet and didn't answer her. In an interview years and years later, he said that he went to his mother, like years and years later, to beg for forgiveness for his behaviour as a kid. Touching moment.
Right. All right. So that's pretty close to home then.
Mm-hmm. Very close to home.
Tough moment.
Probably threw out all of his porn bloopers.
Get rid of that shit. I'm going to sign off our section on PTA with a quote from the great man himself, which kind of gives an insight into his morality, I suppose. He said, "Most people don't share my moral sense, which is, I'll masturbate, but I have to clean it up very quickly afterwards." PTA.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. That's
Expand
fine.
on that.
Just going to leave our listeners with that thought, to be honest.
The cast.
We're starting off in the only place possible in the cast. Mark Wahlberg as poet, karate expert and porn king.
Karate.
A man of passion and mystery, a man of lust, Dirk Diggler.
He is a black belt.
Westy, Wahlberg as Diggler, what are your thoughts?
Wahlberg as Diggler, I really enjoy his performance in this. I think he's really, really good. And like Paul Thomas Anderson has said, he's not a trained actor, and that's obvious. He's just a real ball of energy and talent.
Yeah.
And I think he is Dirk Diggler, to be honest. He is the character. It kind of is Marky Mark, looking for what he wants to look for and not knowing what he wants, but he wants something. He wants to be something. He wants to be big. He wants his name in lights. And I think that really, really translates to the Mark Wahlberg's kind of vibrancy and what he wanted from Hollywood. And I think it's perfect casting. I know the original casting was Leonardo DiCaprio, and he worked with him on the Basketball Diaries, where he plays Mickey. And I think that's a great performance. It's really under the radar. You know, Paul Thomas Anderson looking for the star. DiCaprio got Titanic, and he suggested Wahlberg. Wahlberg come on. But I do think this is perfect casting. I'm not a big fan of Wahlberg overall. I count about 5 films that I like him in.
Yeah.
This, for me, is that, you know, it's not Mark Wahlberg to me. It's Dirk Diggler. And that's one of the finest things I could possibly say when you get an actor who becomes the part and becomes that role. And he's done really well not to just stick to this part. I think he saw that coming and didn't want to be typecast. To me, it's a full package, and it really, really, really works. I think he's brilliant.
It really is a full package.
God almighty, every fucking time.
I mean, it's a pretty amazing transformation that from the kid that we see in Hot Tracks at the start, very unassuming, shy, nervous-looking kid, to the guy whose power and crystal meth has gone to his head when he becomes the king of Dirk.
Yeah.
And throughout the film, I think he plays a few performances in the lifespan of these 6-odd years. And although Wahlberg isn't the finest actor in the world, like you were saying, Westy, I think he does very well here. Probably a career high in a career of relative lows, I would say.
Mm-hmm. It's up there.
Dirk's success is charted by his appearance at the Adult Film Awards. He's at the second one, he's all enthusiastic, happy to be there, really like overwhelmed by the awards that he's getting for best cock and stuff like that.
Well, you would be, wouldn't you?
You would be, of course. Who wouldn't?
Of course you would be.
But by the fourth, he's expecting of his awards, and his speech is simply, "Thank you." And then he's off. Of course, it's me again. Of course it is. Yeah. And he plays the strung out junkie in Amber Heard's doc really well. Mm-hmm. I like his claim in that he saved 1,000 marriages because of his porn acting.
Yeah. Can I say this to the camera? Takes his glasses off. That's brilliant.
Shit editing. Yeah. And I think he's really great in that scene with his mother. I mentioned it under PTA. Heartbreaking, and it highlights just how much of a kid Eddie is. He's screaming, "Why are you being mean to me?" and stuff like that. It's really quite unbearable to watch.
Yeah.
And I think that's reinforced in the party scene after that, when he's acting like a kid in the pool doing bombs and stuff like that. And it's pretty gut-wrenching to see that innocence kind of ripped away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And finally, his patchwork denim suit as Brock Landers is a thing of beauty.
It is a thing
That
of beauty.
is a stunning piece. What a piece.
A joy to behold. It's a joy
incredible.
to behold. Yeah.
Matt, what do you think of Wahlberg here?
Very much in agreement with you too. And I was kind of dreading this part a little bit because, like Westy, I'm just not a Wahlberg fan in general. Like he's often quite bad a lot of the times, or he can mean good things, but he's the worst thing about it. But coming back to this, I was pleasantly surprised. I'd forgotten how good he is in this, because I don't think he's the best actor in the film. I don't think it's the best performance in the film, but
No.
definitely better than you'd expect.
Much better.
And it is because I think PTA knows how to use that naivety that he has and just channel that as Wesley says, that kind of rawness that he's got and put that on screen. So those things you mentioned, like, yeah, totally agree. Just convinced me like how naive he is at the beginning, how eager to please he is, and like the awards, and when he gets his house, like how like delighted he is to show it all off to Rambo, like, oh, I've got this and I've got this and I've got this over there. He
It's my
is just like,
dojo.
Yeah. And that painting's the worst fucking painting I've ever seen in my life. And he's like, that's really good. It's fucking atrocious.
That painting of Little Bill.
Yeah.
That's
At the
done
end.
in homage is awful. A massive forehead.
Yeah. Jack just laughs as he walks past it at the end.
yeah, but once you get out of that naivety stuff and you get into the 80s and you see that ego take control and he gets coked up, he's really good in those bits, like you say, Luke, but he pushes the aspect just enough. He does become unlikable, but not so much that you totally lose any sympathy for him. So at the end, when he's had to resort to prostitution and he's in the car and he gets beaten up, you still feel sorry for him, because deep down you can still see that young kid behind the eyes. And I think it's down to Wahlberg, and we'll talk about this when we get there, but I think it is down to Wahlberg that emotional beat at the end lands when he does come back to Jack for forgiveness. It's a really good performance by Wahlberg, and where I think he actually excels is the films within the films, because it's got to be wooden acting on purpose. It's really bad dialogue. They're ridiculous, but they've got to take it seriously at the same time. And I think that's a very difficult balance to pull off. And I think Wahlberg is brilliant in all those.
Yeah. It's not good. Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah. With a toothpick. Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, love that.
It's the best place to eat in Los Angeles.
It's excellent.
It's excellent.
There's an amazing bit when he's as Brock Landers and he's running towards the screen, and it's just before the title card comes up, Dirk Diggler as Brock Landers, and he's running across the roof.
Yeah,
and he's really running crap, ungainly on his feet. But then he does his karate, shit karate, but it freeze frames, and he looks amazing.
Yeah, it's perfect.
As we like to hear, and as Westy mentioned as well, Mark Wahlberg wasn't first on the list to play Dirk Diggler. I mean, he wasn't a star by any means, apart from his Marky Mark pop career, and this was a real star-making turn for him. Leo DiCaprio was on board originally, but ended up passing so he could star in Titanic. Joaquin Phoenix was asked, but wanted no part of it. Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Christian Bale, Ethan Hawke were also considered.
Yeah.
But DiCaprio eventually recommended Wahlberg to PTA, and he took a meeting with him. Wahlberg was initially unsure, especially considering the backlash that Showgirls got, which is based in a similar industry. Mm-hmm. But after reading 30 pages of the script, he knew it was something special. And when he met PTA, he said, listen, I love these 30 pages, and I know I'm going to love the rest of it, but I just want to make sure before I really fall in love with it and want to do it that you don't want me because I'm the guy who will get it in his underwear, based on his Calvin Klein ads.
Yeah.
But he also told PTA that he had an extra inch on Leo, which was the clincher.
Of height or
yeah.
I don't in the research that wasn't specified, but I guess height. I imagine height.
Okay. Yeah. What else could it be?
DiCaprio would later say that turning down Boogie Nights was his biggest regret.
Wow.
Really?
And despite Wahlberg's claim, that isn't all Wahlberg in Diggler's pants. A prosthetic was used. I mean, obviously, Christ, digging tunnels like Charlie Bronson. The first one that was made was far too big. Wahlberg said that it was modelled on John Holmes and went past his knee. So they built a shorter one, which fit around Wahlberg's own penis. I mean, we're getting down and dirty here, but it's the subject
But,
matter.
it's the
It
film.
is, what do you expect?
Yeah.
The film's DP, Robert Ellsworth, was impressed by Wahlberg's commitment to the role. He said, what Mark Wahlberg did in that movie was all sorts of things that he had to absolutely commit to. He had to put a prosthetic cock on his own cock. You know what I mean? That's asking an awful lot of an actor. It is.
Yes, I know what you mean, Robert. You've been fairly literal there.
Very specific. But most of the time during shooting, they didn't use the oversized appendage. A stocking was filled with birdseed and used as a stand-in. The stocking was kept warm in a trunk over the weekend, and when they came back to it, it had to be replaced because the seeds started to sprout. Just a disgusting image. It is a disgusting image.
Should have had a cucumber wrapped in tinfoil.
Get that in the power zone.
You got the touch.
Mark Wahlberg was lucky enough to take the prosthetic home as a keepsake of the film. He keeps it locked away from his kids, of course, and he's recently said that it started to deteriorate. Oh. It happens to us all.
Yeah. Well, he's of a certain age now.
That's age for you. We've mentioned PTA's influences, the scenes where Dirk's looking into the mirror, particularly at the end, psyching himself up, talking to himself, directly influenced by the final scene in Rage and Bull, where LaMotta is doing a similar thing, which was itself an homage to Brando in On the Waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, did you ever see that movie Star Wars?
Oh, about 4 times.
People tell me I look like Han Solo.
Really?
Our second cast member is the Pawn King of San Fernando Valley, the patriarchal Jack Horner, played by Burt Reynolds. I think he's very, very good here. Deadpan funny, like not a flicker. His delivery, I think, is pitch perfect, and although he brought his movie star ego to the set, there are a number of stories, and we'll get to them, caused a lot of problems. I think it's that movie star ego that makes Jack who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think you need somebody with that screen presence, somebody who's seen it all and been around the block a few times, the world weary, I'm unfazed because I've seen it all before kind of attitude. And I think Reynolds uniquely brings that to the character.
Yeah, definitely.
The character of Jack was based on Bob Chin, who was a writer-director of a majority of John Holmes's work. There have been comparisons made to Gerald Damiano. He directed Deep Throat, and he was innovative in the genre. He had the same outlook as Jack in that he wanted to make real films with story and character. And
similar
his
hair as well. Yeah.
Hair is identical to Jack. It is. And Tarantino made this great point about the character. He loved the film, but he said that the one thing that sticks out is that Jack makes out like he's this great artist, like Damiano did.
Yeah.
He wanted to legitimize the industry and make pieces of art, and he knows a good film from a piece of shit. But when he's in the editing room, he says that the Brock Landers film is probably his best yet. And it's absolute shit.
Yeah.
Crap.
He would know a good film when he sees one,
Exactly. Tarantino argued that character would know it's crap. And that rings true. It doesn't really feel consistent about the character. It's supposed to be a shit film, absolutely. Even the consistency of the gunshot sound is off when Brock shoots the first one, and then the second one's a completely different sound. So it's supposed to be shit, but that director shouldn't think it's good.
Yeah, it's a flaw in the character. It's a flaw in the character. Yeah.
Westy, what do you think of Reynolds as Horner?
I think he's fantastic. I think he's really, really brilliant. And I was surprised to learn that he wasn't having a great time on set and that he didn't get on with Paul Thomas Anderson, because it does not come across at all in the film.
No, you're right.
He anchors the film. And he brings a real kind of, that weight that we always talk about, and that real kind of distinguished gentleman kind of vibe to it. And I think Burt Reynolds is one of the only things, or not one of the only things, but he's one of the main things that stops this film going into that sleazer area, to stop it going into that moment where, he can say things, but it is very grounded and it is very realistic and it is very believable. And you get that from the character. And when he's arguing about, videotape coming in and he's on about film and he's got an auteur, he's an artist and he believes in that, you kind of get that from from Burt Reynolds. Yeah. That's what he would believe in. He wouldn't go to videotape. He would say, I'm going to stick with film. That's where I'm from.
I'm not going to go to TV. I'm a movie star.
Yeah, exactly. And he brings that, that real gravitas to the character, and he looks great. And it just seems like he's getting on so well with everyone. He's just this real character that you just trust in the whole film. And I think he stops it from becoming too miserable. He stops it from becoming too much of a depravity, too much of I can't watch this. This is too seedy. He brings a real elegance to the film. Yeah. And I think that's, to his real credit, and the fact that he, didn't get on with Paul Thomas Anderson, but I can see why, based on what we were talking about in the direction. And, he's trying to tell Burt Reynolds what to do, but you wouldn't have that film with Burt Reynolds in it. So somebody had to lose. And unfortunately, it was Burt Reynolds turning around and saying, I don't want anything to do with this film. for him to have a problem with this film, surely he should have watched this back and go, you know what, I've got to swallow my pride and say Paul Thomas Anderson actually fucking nailed this.
Yeah, he came through
what
for me.
else? What else has he done? He did Striptease in 96.
Yeah.
That was a shower of shit. And then he was in the Bean movie in 97, just before this.
Awful.
Why? And then he's in something like this, where it's just a young director. Yes, he's a bit of an upstart. Yes, he's a bit of a pain in the arse, but look what he's done. Look how good you are in it. Look how good he's made you look. And he wanted him, you know, for the next film. He wanted him for Magnolia, I think. And he wanted it to keep it going. And Burt Reynolds was like, no, I'm not doing it. And I think, to me, that's just a pride thing, unfortunately. Because if he'd embraced it the same way as Travolta embraced it, I guess, in Pulp Fiction, and just went, you know, this is a real resurgence for who I am, and took it as a positive, I think we'll be in a completely different situation. But the great thing is, watching this film without doing research, he's having a great time. It looks like he's having a great time, and it really works. And it's a fucking excellent performance. He really shines in this for me. Probably the best performance in the film, I think.
Yeah, superb. Love him. You need a huge alpha male star as Jack, but what you need is an alpha male from a previous generation, which is exactly what you get with Reynolds.
Who's just not threatening either, with no threat.
Exactly. He has this huge aura, but it's charisma and it's charm. He doesn't come across like the kind of man you'd expect to be a veteran porn director.
Yeah,
you feel he genuinely cares about every single person on his film set.
It's not sleazy or lurid or anything like that.
You never lose sight of the fact that actually, though, if you prod him too far, he could rip someone apart with his bare hands if he's provoked enough. He's just got that feel to him. And I was saying, like, of other big stars at the time, and I know De Niro was linked with it at one point, I know Nicholson was. And I just don't think any of them could have brought what Reynolds does, because I think he judges that performance so perfectly. And like we've just been saying, stops it feeling sleazy. And I'm not sure any of those others could have done that. Like that first scene where he talks to Eddie and he's essentially seducing him. He's seducing him into the lifestyle.
He is,
That could have been horrible in the wrong hands. And it's the same as when he's talking about his films, and he's given Eddie the whole spiel about how good his films are, and you just sit there like enraptured, as if he's talking about like proper Oscar-winning cinema, even when he gets to a line like, and when they spurt out that joy juice, they just got to sit in it, and you're like, yeah, totally. They've got to sit in it.
You've got to sit in that.
What's next? What's next?
Part of the thing is, which we've talked about already, it does feed into the film that Reynolds wasn't having the best of times. I think a lot of it came the fact that he was envious of Wahlberg, because he was like, that was me 20 years ago. Why didn't I have this role 20 years ago? And now I'm the old man on set. And he fell out pretty spectacularly with PTA because he wanted to improvise a bit. PTA wouldn't let him. He had a fight with Thomas Jane at one point. They got into it. William H. Macy tells his story where it was his first day on set with Reynolds, and apparently what Macy does whenever he's in a film with someone for the first time, he'll say something like really insulting about one of their films, but just as a joke to break the ice. In Macy's words, I said something about Smokey and the Bandit, and I thought Burt was going to jump across the bed of me and smack all my teeth out. So, you know, he was clearly not to be provoked. And it got so bad at one point that I know, like, an assistant who'd worked with him before said to one of the producers, look, Burt's got a thing in his contract that if he punches the director in the face, he can't be fired because he has a temper. It's just accepted. That's going to happen at some point.
Fucking yes, man. Brilliant.
What a guy.
Amazing.
Great character. Fantastic performance.
Yeah. I think it just feels as though he's very sensitive about his reputation. And he was surrounded by basically these young kids doing something quite sordid. And I think that really exposed him to, is this what I've become? I can't get a gig anywhere else. And this is what I'm doing. I think I'm just reading between the lines. Just like the Diggler role, like the fellas have mentioned, there were a number of names in the mix for the part of Jack Warner. Bill Murray, Harvey Keitel, Jack Nicholson, De Niro, Albert Brooks, Warren Beatty, Sidney Pollack, who are all either declined or were deemed unsuitable. I'd love to see Pollack in their mind.
Pollock would have been great.
Pollock would have worked, yeah, totally.
Yeah, very nice. Beatty declined because he saw himself more in the Dirk Diggler role.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Outrageous. Reynolds didn't want to do it and turned it down a few times. He felt like he'd been letting down his fan base doing a role like this. He angrily told PTA where to go after. If he continued to pursue him, PTA said to him if he brought that energy to the role, he'd win an Oscar. And there was a much publicised spat on set. We've talked about it. Reynolds and PTA generally encouraged improvisation on set, all the actors apart from Burt Reynolds, who he insisted should read his lines verbatim. Reynolds got more and more pissed off considering his experience and PTA's inexperience. He screamed at him, "You little fucking punk kid, don't tell me what to do." That's what one of the crew members said. And the whole thing culminated in a fist fight, or it would have if a crew member didn't catch Reynolds' arm as he went in for the kill, cocked. Anderson and Wahlberg have both suggested that Reynolds was high on set as well.
Right. That doesn't help.
No.
And Reynolds continued this narrative after the shooting wrapped. When he saw a rough cut of the film, he fired his agent for recommending the role and made his unhappiness public knowledge. Wahlberg said that his behaviour cost him a potential career comeback and was quoted as saying he would have won the Oscar had he not dug himself such a hole.
Yeah, he distanced himself from the film, which is why I think he didn't win it.
Yeah, it was big news. I remember it when it came out, and it was big news.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking forward to seeing you in action. Jack says you've got a great big cock.
Well, I don't know. I guess so.
May I see it?
Really?
Please.
Okay, so moving on, it's a huge cast. We've mentioned it.
Yeah.
We're not going to go through them all in detail, but we've got a couple of Patreon questions here to cover our favourites in the cast. So first Patreon question from Craig Rooney. Hello, Craig.
Hello, Craig.
Craig says, in a cast of this size and quality, which actor gives the best performance of the film and why? We're not including Wahlberg or Reynolds here because we've already talked about them. So, Matt, do you want to go first? Who are you picking out as your fave?
Yeah, we've talked about him already, but I do want to go back to the Han Solo lookalike. That is John C. Reilly.
Dead ringer.
It's a dead ringer. Uncanny. I mean, is there ever a time when it's not a good thing to have John C. Reilly in your film?
He's just wonderful, isn't he?
Always honoured. No. He's always great. And I love him here. He's such a warm presence. Because he's not the type of person you expect to be a porn star, which makes it all the funnier. He's slightly dopey, terrible poetry.
Yeah,
but just so
great magic though. Great magic.
Great magic.
Oh, magic's amazing, but so engaging as a presence. And what I like is that you get the instant friendship with Dirk.
Yeah.
There's that little bit of one-upmanship to go through. You know, we've said already, what do you bench? 350. You know, when the countdown and neither of them say it after 3. You didn't say it.
You didn't say anything. Yeah, it's fucking great. Man.
But it's friendly, and he's just straight in there as a mate, someone who's ultra reliable. He's a really confident presence, and I think he does a lot, a bit like Reynolds, to just dispel any potential sleaziness in this film. Because John C. Reilly, of course, he's not sleazy.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, he's great.
In surprisingly good nick, considering my mind's eye view of what John C. Reilly looks like in Speedos.
Yeah.
Which I obviously don't think very often. No. I'll pull back on that. That might not make the edit. I love his interview in the Diggler doc. He's actually got a kernel of a good point about movie violence, but then it all crumbles and his delivery is fucking atrocious as well.
Yeah. Well, let's just forget about movies. I'll fuck on my own time.
You can't fuck forever. Westy, who's your cast member that you're picking out?
I'm going to go for Julianne Moore because I think she's just incredible in this film, and she has the most to do emotionally. She has the most to do in terms of actually transforming from a character and going through something and being that mother figure. And I think she plays that so well. She plays the distance from her own child so well. She plays the emotion, but she brings a depth to it that you can actually buy into and that you actually believe. And I think she's just fantastic. She's so watchable. I think when she has that scene with Roller Girl and she's like, "Are you going to be my mom? I'm going to say you're my mom," and you just say yes. You know, and I don't want to leave this room. Yeah, I don't want to leave this room either. You know, and it just brings a real elegance and a real weight, just much like Burt Reynolds does. I think because she's just on his arm. You know, when you see her on screen, she's just electric in this. I think she's just fantastic, a real presence before she was a real presence, to be honest. And she was, she just shows that she's capable of anything. And what she went on to do after this is based on this performance. It's just incredibly believable, incredibly lovable character as well, incredibly flawed. But at the same time, just all of them things all mashed together. I think it's just incredible that she pulled that off. I think she's just absolutely 100% fantastic in the film.
It's a really complex character, and it's a great performance, and we probably could have had it in the cast, but it would have been a much bigger conversation, and there was not much in the research about Julianne Moore's performance. But she is the architect of her own downfall. She loves Dirk and sees herself as a surrogate mother, but she does have sex with him. and she's the reason he does coke in the first place. It's all very messed up, all very complicated. And I mentioned earlier, tapping into what I said, the sinister unspoken things that reveal themselves after the credits roll. You start thinking about the film. That scene with Roller Girl and Amber, where she's asking if she can be her mother, she says yes. All the while they're doing piles of coke. But what goes unsaid is that those two almost certainly do porn scenes together as well. The same with Dirk. It's all very complex, all very, very odd.
Yeah, it's a very confused of about, you know, an emotion and a family unit and this whole kind of belonging, really.
Well, I'm going to go for Don Cheadle, who plays Buck Swope.
Yes. Ooh, Big Buck.
Big Buck. Incredible.
This is high fidelity.
Very important.
Very important.
I love him in that TK421 scene. Oh, I think you really need all that bass.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
We do that in store. Very little cost.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hilarious when the customers stumble on the price and Buck just cuts in. Deadly serious. I have this very unit in my home. Do you? Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. I was going to put this 8-track in. Now you listen to it.
You get that freaky deaky. It helps me.
You feel that?
When he fumbles through the technical stuff that he's clearly bullshitting, the modification that takes it up another 3 or 4 quads per channel. But that's really kind of technical talk. That doesn't concern you. But he's all about the technical and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, brilliant.
And yeah, that country and western number, without any irony whatsoever. But I think that's the tragedy of Buck. He's a man completely out of place and uncomfortable in his own skin. He wants to be a cowboy. You know, that's his thing, but it's not cool. And he gets pushback from everyone about it, so he tries to go with what's expected, including that Rick James braided wig that he's wearing at New Year's Eve party, for example. But it's beautiful that Jesse loves him for who he is. Cowboy outfits, sunrises and all. And who the hell doesn't love Don Cheadle? He's a highlight in anything.
Oh, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
He's first class.
Unless he's a Cockney, but it's fine.
Apart from the Cockney. Barney Rubble.
Barney Rubble. Yeah. Nice to be working with real crooks again.
Hang on to your knickers. Oh, okay. Now there's a certain whiff of indulgence here on my part with our second Patreon question. This one is from...
You just want to answer this.
This one is from Peter Sutcliffe. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Peter.
Peter asks, are there any films that Luis Guzman doesn't elevate with his sheer presence? I'll stay silent. Westy, go.
Is there any that he doesn't? There's one that he doesn't, which is Black Rain. Everything else, yes. And you guys, when you might not have seen, Matt, you might have, but I have because I've got 2 young children. So I had to watch Journey to the Mysterious Island. And he fucking elevates that as well. He's great in that. And you know what else he's brilliant in? And he really elevates is The Hard Way.
He's amazing in that.
And he's also fucking excellent in Crocodile Dundee too. Fucking brilliant. Yeah. You're right. He elevates everything but Black Rain because that can't be elevated by anybody. But yeah, everything else, absolutely agree.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, shameless this like by you, Luke.
I know.
You know. That's some really interesting questions. You know,
it'd be like 15
what do you guys'
questions to
favorite
choose
films
from.
within films? You know, what would your porn names be? You know, like Guzman though, straight in with that.
It's the last episode.
Yeah. No, he is a great character actor, and obviously every film he's in, he does bring something to. And yeah, like any great actor, he does improve every film he's in. I don't know if I would go all the way and say elevates with sheer presence, though, because if you took him out of this, it's not going to be shit all of a sudden.
Yeah.
If you take him out of Magnolia, that's not going to be shit. If you take him out of Traffic, that's not going to be shit. So I always love to see him in something, but I wouldn't put him up there with like the best in terms of sheer presence.
You see him on screen and you're like, I'm fine.
I'm
now.
happy.
Yeah.
Great.
Happy.
Settle in 2 hours. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
3 hours if you like.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
Matt, don't
Big for you.
Don't be surprised if your piece doesn't make it in the final cut. Okay.
No, I've got a good story though about
All
him.
right. Okay. Great.
Yeah, because he was one of the actors that went to an actual porn shoot at one point to take notes. And
Brilliant.
when he arrived, they said that there's a balcony if you just go up there and watch. So he's watching the scene taking place. And Guzman said, well, the guy who was involved looked up, pointed to me and yelled, "Hey, I know you." And Guzman just went, "Well, that's fucked up." And then in his words, next thing you know, he goes limp.
Did he have his belly out?
Yeah, he did.
Amazing.
He's just super proud of his expanding girth in this film.
He is.
Something to be applauded. Proud as a peacock, letting it all hang out. Oily torso. Fantastic. In that opening scene, he's the king of the club. He knows everybody, the consummate host. And his reaction to Buck when he's showing off his cowboy outfit on the dance floor, it's just hilarious. He's clearly taken aback by it, but he doesn't want to hurt Buck's feelings. I like it if you like it, man.
Table number 10.
Yeah, so I'll watch Guzman in anything personal favourite, as discussed on many occasions. And will continue as well.
Continue to be, yeah. Can't shut
Just
up
because
the
we're
guy.
moving to YouTube doesn't mean that Guzman won't be prominent.
No, he'd be even more prominent,
The hard way
improving the
next.
YouTube channel every time he's on.
So I think we've covered the big boys and girls there, but there are a few other
Yep.
standouts, and we'll get to those later in the show. But I think we all agree, stellar performances all around.
Yes,
Incredible.
huge.
Hi, I'm Melanie Rose. I'm a voice actor on That Love podcast. Wow, that's a huge round of applause. I kind of have to say that I deserve it. I'm awesome. So why am I here? Where are my notes? Okay, found it. I just wanted to promote why you, the audience, should listen to our lovely podcast. 1, we love romance. Actually, I don't. I'm more into noir films. But 2, we entertain. At least that's what's written on here. I'm still not sure. 3, we're funny. I am. I'm not too sure about the other actors. 4, I guess there isn't a 4th reason why you should listen. You love me. There's a reason to listen to us. Or me, to be precise. Anyway, check out That Love podcast and follow us. Bye, bitches.
Thank you to That Love podcast for sponsoring the show. This episode of All the Right Movies is also sponsored by Foul Play, a true crime podcast. Foul Play is a long-running true crime podcast that has earned rave reviews. The new season of Foul Play takes an evocative trip through time to America in the 1800s to detail the extraordinary life of evil mastermind H.H. Holmes, who is regarded as America's first known serial killer. Foul Play traces Holmes' steps across the country, uncovering his life and crimes, including a possible new victim from Indiana, which would have been his first female victim when he moved to Chicago. For your next true crime fix, Foul Play is the obvious choice. You can listen to Foul Play, a true crime podcast, on all major podcast platforms and at itsfoulplay.com. The link for the site is in the description for this podcast. Thanks to Foul Play, a true crime podcast, for sponsoring this episode of All the Right Movies. Finally, this episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by Underrated. Underrated is a movie podcast that casts its critical eye on overlooked and underappreciated movies. Join host Dirk every Monday for new episodes as he takes a look at some of those movies bubbling under the critical radar, giving them some much-needed re-evaluation. Latest episodes of Underrated have covered films like You're Next, Logan Lucky, and I Saw the Devil. So if you're a movie buff and looking for a movie podcast to satisfy your weekly fix, then Underrated is the one for you. Listen every Monday in all the usual podcast places, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere else. Thank you to Underrated for sponsoring this episode of All the Right Movies.
The middle.
With his name in place, Dirk makes a reputation for himself in the industry, climbs up the ladder, introduces us to his iconic character Brock Landers, picking up awards along the way. The next scene that we're looking at is at the dawn of a new decade. Hello 80s, goodbye success and happy families. And I'm going to go first here. And I just want to talk about Philip Baker Hall as Floyd Gondoli in this scene.
What a performance.
Lovely.
Baker Hall. We've talked about him before.
Yeah.
He's got an ice cool entrance with driver's seat by sniffing the tears playing over the top. Amazing.
Yeah.
And he's amazing in anything, Baker Hall. But he's in the meeting, he's talking about moving to videotape. He knows what time it is. The industry's going to be turned upside down with the new technology. And Horner knows he's right, but he's resistant against it because he sees himself as the artist.
Yeah.
Really great scene.
Yeah.
But it's his dialogue in the scene with Jack. I quoted at the top, just magnificent dialogue,
Yeah.
comedy gold, butter in his ass and lollipops in his mouth. But that's just me. That's just something that I enjoy. What the fuck? That is just amazing. I couldn't have anticipated that from this almost sweet-looking, unassuming old man.
Imagine he did an H. Macy and got that the wrong way around.
Butter in my mouth and lollipops in my ass.
Just what I like.
That's just me. And in the background, when Floyd is saying these outrageous things, Robert Ridgely, who plays the Colonel, he's in there, and you can see him howling away at Baker Hall's dialogue.
Yeah.
Killing himself laughing, which I'm not surprised. PTA blurred him out, but it's clear to see that he's laughing away.
Yeah.
Because it's improvised, isn't it?
Is it improvised? I did not know that.
Yeah, it's improvised, I think.
I mean, who improvises that dialogue?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Just incredible. Like that once, I mean, I know he shows up later on, but he really makes an imprint on the film just with that 2-minute scene.
Yeah.
I think there's another actor to talk about here, and it's a very tonally different scene because it's Philip Seymour Hoffman as Scotty.
The great Hoffman.
Great Hoffman, and it's just that scene where he tries to kiss Dirk, and then he has the emotional breakdown in the car when he gets rebuffed.
Yeah.
And
I'm just drunk, man. I'm just out of my mind.
I mean, this scene, in a lot of ways, it sums up what's great about this film, because you could watch this scene in isolation and think, well, this must be about this guy. This must be Scotty's film, not Dirk's. Because it has that ability to make everyone feel so important in their scene. And you think, well, this scene, it's so good and it's so emotional. It must be about this guy. How can it not be? But it's not. It's just this little side plot that's written and performed really beautifully. And you get so much from it. And the way that I personally read it is Scotty is this young gay guy who's probably ostracized from his actual family. So he's found this family instead who just accept him, who don't care what his sexuality is. He's home there. But it's still so sad to see how desperate he is to impress Dirk. You can see he's building up the courage to wait for him because he wants to show off his new car. And it's really pitiful in a lot of ways. Like, particularly when he just starts begging him, "Can I kiss you? Can I kiss you?"
Yeah, and please. Do you want to kiss? Do you want to kiss me? Or
if there's any difference. And I think Wahlberg plays that scene really well as well, because it doesn't get unpleasant when he rejects him. It's just like, sorry, that's just not me. It's not what I'm interested in. There's nothing.
He embraces him as well, doesn't he?
But no judgment.
Yeah. There's still an embrace there. He's like, let's just go back inside.
It still tells him he loves him, which is so key. But then obviously Scotty stays by and he has that like mini breakdown in the cards. It's a small scene, but it's really heartbreaking. I think it's brilliantly played. It is.
It is. And I think what you were saying, Matt, as well, is I think this encapsulates the tone of the entire film, really, because it is quite funny. But then it becomes heartbreaking, and I think it's a really great choice from PTA to hold on him in the car calling himself an idiot and crying his eyes out. Because I think a different director would have cut when Dirk walks away, losing the emotion and the poignancy of the whole thing.
Track back into the house with him.
Just a really tragic figure.
I'm going to go for another tracking shot, obviously. But we're New Year's Eve, and it's little Bill has finally had enough. He witnesses his wife just one last time, just taking the fucking piss out of who he is.
Yeah.
And he's just had enough. And it's just a wonderful tracking shot in, sees what's going on, walks out to the car, sits in the car, pulls a gun out. And Paul Thomas Anderson said in one of the screenings, there was a bunch of guys. And once he got the car out of the glove box, they were just like screaming and just cheering when he was loading it and walking back in like, right, she's going to fucking get hers. Nice one. He's going to do what he needs to do. Goes back in. And then it's just so well played out. It's so well choreographed because you get the countdown as he goes in the room. It's like 5, 4, 3. And like he shoots him on the 3, 2, 1. And it's like they're 3 bullets. Like bang, bang, bang. It's at the countdown. Staging. Right. Happy New Year. Boom. Right. It's not Happy New Year. And they were cheering when he shot his wife and the guy, which was meant to be a lot more graphic. It was meant to be like bullets going at like naked bodies and really shocking, but they cut that out and just held that shot. And Macy comes out again. I know we spoke about William H. Macy, but I mean, this kind of performance where he does play that complete lost soul, he's incredible. He's never going to be able to do it again because he did it so well in Fargo and he did it so well in this. And this sequence for me is just peak H. Macy. This is what he is born to do. This very performance, this tracking shot is what he was made to do as an actor because he just sells every second of it. And then when he turns the gun on himself and it's just bang, that is just an absolute shocker. And Paul Thomas Anderson said these guys were cheering when he shot his wife and they stopped and they were still cheering and he shot himself and then they were just silent. And he's like, that's the reaction that I wanted from that moment. That's the reaction I wanted from that scene. And that's how good Macy is in that. It's perfect.
It is, yeah. Like comedy and tragedy again combined. He really juxtaposes them well, because when the camera starts tracking Little Bill, you know what's going to happen. He's going to find his girlfriend or wife in bed with somebody else. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Because it's been played for laughs the previous 2 times.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. His character is loosely based on porn actor Cal Jammer, whose girlfriend, Jill Kelly, was having an affair with actress PJ Sparks, spelt with 2 X's, and another porn actor. Jammer later shot himself in the face on Kelly's front lawn.
The face?
Yeah.
Christ.
Wow.
Some people told me the food in here was really good.
Good? It's not good. It's probably the best place to eat in all Los Angeles. It's excellent.
So with the death of Little Bill, the advent of videotapes, and Dirk's burgeoning drug habit, the wheels start to come off. Amber directs a hard-hitting documentary showing the real Dirk Diggler. The Colonel gets busted, there's a wedding in the family and a new addition to the team which threatens Dirk's dominance, leading to an explosive bust-up with Jack. Our next sequence starts in 1983 at Sound City Recording Studios, where Reed and Dirk are laying down some classic tracks, and ends with Amber's failed custody hearing. And I'm going to start us off by talking about Dirk and Reed in the recording studio and their failed attempts to get their tapes back.
Please do.
Yeah, I mean, 100% comedy gold. You got the touch. Amazing.
I think you should repeat that bit. Yeah.
Reed in the background grooving away, and Dirk claiming that the bass is taken away from the vocal.
Amazing.
That was a
when
fine.
Does that ever happen?
You heard the man. Dirk's spectacular golden tonsils is what he is. I mean, that song "You Got the Touch," which it'll sound familiar for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it sounds to me that it's a rip-off of Jump by Van Halen, that synth intro.
Yeah.
Do. But also, it's a real song by Stan Bush. It appeared in the 1986 film Transformers.
Yes,
the Transformers movie. And it was originally written for Cobra, but Stallone said no, which I understand considering the number of bangers on that soundtrack.
Oh, bangers.
Well, now we're going to listen to a cut of Dirk's fine vocals, and then we're going to segue into the actual song just to give you a feel for the different versions. Oh, a great track, sang twice beautifully there.
Yeah.
all the songs are great though.
He will rock you.
Love that one.
All night. Feel my heat.
Repeat that a bit more. Feel my heat. Were you rolling on the rehearsal?
Incredible.
Yeah.
But my favourite part is the interaction with the recording studio guy. He says, it's not an MP, it's a YP, your problem. And Reed says, well, now you're talking above my head, MP, YP, I don't understand this industry jargon. There's magic on those tapes. That's ours. I need to get that magic to the recording company. And Dirk jumps in and he tries to explain it in simple arithmetic. Well, all right, 1, 2, 3. We're guaranteed a record deal. Our stuff is that good. Amazing. And they're just absolutely frenzied. Dirk doesn't know what a catch-22 is. He gets confused about that. But it just captures the mania of the whole segment, and I think it really feeds off the energy from the Roller Girl Amber storyline that's happening at the same time. They cross-cut, and they all, like, both of them build up into this frenzy. Great. Movie director and Robert Downey Jr.'s dad, Robert Downey Sr., plays the record studio guy that Dirk and Reed are arguing with.
Right, yeah.
And he plays a part in a moment later in the film, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's really important here about the juxtaposition between film and tape, and how important tape is, and how it's destroying everybody's lives. That they can't get the tapes back. Jack doesn't want to record on tape.
Very good.
You know, it's got that real kind of negative connotation towards anything that has to do with a taped kind of medium. And I really enjoy that. I love the way it's cross-cut with a few different sequences here that really build the pace, and it's really, really good. But the thing that sticks with me about the whole sequence is just Buck just trying to get that bank loan.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, he's just such a genuine character. And it's the only character that you see not actually performing on the films sexually, even though he is a porn star, but you don't see it. I don't really buy into the fact that he is one necessarily. It doesn't really come across to me that way.
He wants to get out as well, doesn't he?
He kind of wants to get out, but it doesn't really feel like he's in there. It doesn't feel like he's part of it. He's never really been happy. He's always got his own identity. And it's something that he just did kind of not really of his own accord. It's something that he wasn't necessarily proud of, and it was always the stereos and always, trying to get his own way and make his own way, even though, a black man in the late 70s, you shouldn't be into country and western, you should be into this. And I think it's a really interesting character from that regard. And he goes in, and it's the fact that, it's covered over that, you're a porn star and you're not going to get any money from the bank, but it's also kind of, there's this racial undertone as well from this kind of,
there definitely is.
this white kind of totalitarian, like I'm a bank manager and you're not getting anything. Because you're a porn star. But I think it's also because he's a black man at that time asking for money from an establishment, and I don't think they trust him either way, and they're just happy that he has that as an excuse to say no, we can't because of that. Yeah. And I love that. I love the way that everyone's choices in the past for what they've, to become part of this family are now backfiring. And, you've got Amber and you've got Roller Girl trying to make a new family together. But that whole sequence with Buck going for that bank loan, I think it's just heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking stuff. One of the most, genuine characters of the whole film being denied something for doing something that he didn't necessarily want to do in the first place, wants to be a genuine stand-up person of society and isn't allowed to. And I think it's beautifully played out by Cheadle as well. I think his performance in that
he's great.
Is fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Way to undermine everything I've just said.
No, I think this whole sequence is great at showing ramifications, really.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's really brilliantly illustrated with Amber here when she goes to that custody hearing, because Amber is really fundamentally a very likable character, and you're watching her here where she's done up as smartly as she can make herself, so it's completely presentable, completely respectable. But you can still see how fragile she is, and she has no one on her side here. She doesn't even have a lawyer to represent her. And I think Anderson shoots this in a really interesting way because, first of all, she's nearly cut out of the frame entirely. She's barely there on the side. And then when he slowly zooms in on her, it cuts her off from the judge who's in the middle of the shot, and it cuts her off from her ex-husband and his lawyer who are on the right-hand side of the shot. She's always isolated. She's always surrounded by dead space because everything is stacked against her in this scene. And even at the end, when she stood outside sobbing, no one to support her. And all these people just walking past her, not one stops to ask how she is. Like, why is this woman, in absolute hysterics? And this is despite the fact that, we've seen her hoovering up the coke and, not answering the phone when it's obviously his son on the other end. So, she's clearly no angel. And she does lie about that in this hearing. But I think Moore is so good. And the writing is so good for her character in the scene that you're still on her side. And you're pretty devastated that she's not going to get this second chance with her son.
Considering what that character has done as well, it is quite amazing that you are on her side.
And as well, in any other director, I may have looked at this, or any other writer would look at this and go, well, this is her redemption, this is her way back. And Jack would come in, Dirk would come in, Roller Girl would come in, and they would all sit with her and back her up and make sure that she gets custody. And it would all be like this real family coming together and her kind of, repenting all of her sins and becoming a better person. But it doesn't work like that. She just ends up outside alone and broken down. And I think that's a really bold choice.
Yeah. I think I like that it cuts when the judge asks her, when was the last time you were arrested and what was the charge? We don't need to know. It's fucked up immediately. It's not gonna work out. No. Amber's family issues were inspired by similar events experienced by porn star Veronica Hart. And Veronica Hart plays the judge in this scene as well.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
PTA called her the Meryl Streep of porn.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, he would know.
He would. Yeah, expert. Big porn guy. John Doe plays Amber's estranged husband. He was the bassist and singer in LA punk band X. He also played the bartender with the Tash in Roadhouse. He's been in a load of other things. And keep your ears peeled and your eyes open because I will be interviewing him soon. So look out for that in the next few weeks.
Massive. Brilliant.
John Doe.
Yeah.
So inevitably, everything is crumbling around Dirk and his colleagues, and it's going to get a whole load worse before it gets any better.
Yep.
The crew.
The crew on Boogie Nights, we're starting with Paul Thomas Anderson here again, but this time we're talking about him as writer. Westy, what do you think of the screenplay for Boogie Nights?
It's, to me, evident that this was 300 pages cut down to 180 pages. I think he had a lot of ideas. He had a lot of ambition. The Dirk Diggler story obviously was the start of it, and writing that in your late teens is ridiculous. And then to make it into a screenplay that tries to flesh out a story and a narrative when it was based on Spinal Tap. If you try to flesh out Spinal Tap into a narrative, it would be quite similar. It would be like who you're going to follow, what they're going to do. It seems to just be very linear. It's a very kind of linear arc, if there is such a thing. They all end up back where they started and just go through the motions and go through these experiences, and you go through these experiences with these people. But at the end of the story, I don't really feel like any of the characters learn anything. Apart from Buck, obviously, who gets his own place and leaves. But I think everyone else is just kind of stuck where they've always been. And that's, to me, quite depressing. Just kind of saying, well, this is the life that these people have got, whether they like it or not. And no matter what choices they make, whether it's positive or negative, they're going to end up being back here because this is where they are and this is their life and this is where they deserve to be, I guess. And I've always found that quite depressing. And I always wanted this to go to not to a cheesy, uplifting ending, but at least something else where it didn't settle where it feels like you're starting to watch the film again. Yeah. And I think Paul Thomas Anderson he must have had a lot of choices of what he's going to put in here. Some of the scenes that he does decide to put in here are absolutely flawless. Don't get us wrong. Brilliant set pieces, brilliant sequences. But I think he's chosen these sequences and cut it down to 180 pages because he's read it and went, what's going to look the best? Which scenes can I make look really good? Which are the most dynamic visually? Which are the most dynamic stylistically? And I think he's chosen the story based on the stylistic nature of the scenes as opposed to the emotional or the content of the scenes. Right. And that's where the writing for me becomes quite mixed for Boogie Nights. So I have got a bit of an issue with it because it's not one of them films where I feel fulfilled by the end of it. Visually, it's stunning. But emotionally, I don't really feel like I get any kind of resolution. And I think that is down to him. And I think that is down to the writing and the choices that he makes within that.
Right. Okay. Hey, fair points. I don't think that PTA is moralizing with this story. It's not an indictment of the porn industry and those within. No. I think he's got great affection for it, and that despite the sleaze that surrounds it, there are still good people who deserve happiness and a family around them.
Yeah.
But I think it would be irresponsible for him to make a celebration of the era without showing the pitfalls of the excess and the potential corruption of youth and morals. So we get Dirk's spiraling drug use, Amber's inability to have access to her son as a result of the choices that these characters have made. So I think the balance in the writing is very good.
Okay.
I mentioned family there, and I think this is something he's interested in. Something you mentioned on a Patreon episode a few months back, Matt. He puts these weird characters together with these fascinating results. Yeah. Yeah, he does. Jack and Amber, surrogate parents, Buck, Dirk, Roller Girl, etc. The children, and amazingly, the results are quite touching. These people who are on the fringes of society and being let down or have let down their family have found happiness or people they can relate to. If I do have some complaints, it's in a couple of areas in the writing, and they are nitpicks, but we really don't get to understand how and why Dirk's home life is so bad, why he's pushed to the point of leaving. Although that blazing scene with him and his mother does do a good job of taking a shortcut because it is really hard to watch and you can feel the emotion there. But it's plunked in. He's already having a bad time, but we don't know why.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the character of Todd Parker, played by Thomas Jane. Although I think it's a good performance, it just shows up in the midpoint of the film and it's not really made clear to me who he is or what his role is. But he needs to be in there because he's a major part in the Rahad Jackson scene at the end. Yeah. But for me, I don't know what he... I think, like, listening back and reading and watching back to the film, he's a dancer.
Yeah.
But
right.
I don't really... but that's not made very clear.
No.
His introduction to the character, you think he's going to be a threat to Dirk.
Yeah. You definitely do.
Yeah.
You definitely do. But then he becomes to be a bad influence on him. But, so I think that character is not written very well. Matt, what do you think of the writing on Boogie Nights?
again, it's very striking that he's 26 when he writes this, and I think
it's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, with a little bit of naivety thrown in there for me, I think. I mean, from a positive angle, he just has this really uncanny ability to create so many believable and different and interesting characters all in this one film. And I kind of mentioned it, I suppose, when I talked about Scotty. This feels like this film could be about anyone if it wanted to be. So it could be about Amber and Roller Girl and their relationship. Like I say, it could be about Scotty. It could be about Buck's story, trying to leave the porn industry behind. Yeah. And it's about Dirk, but I still feel I know those characters and I know the background of each and one of them, and that's really cleverly done. No one is there for me just as a filler character. And the way that Anderson weaves all the characters together and all their different storylines, that's, you know, really pretty accomplished and pretty impressive. What really resonates for me, though, and it's the reason I find the film very watchable, is what you've essentially been saying there, Luke. I think it's a very warm and affectionate film for all these characters. I think you've said it yourself. It's incredibly non-judgmental about these characters, and it makes a big deal about the fact that they are a family. Yes, they're in an industry where people will make these big instant and big moral judgments about them, but I don't think PTA ever does that. It never feels like anyone is being punished.
No.
He does show some ramifications, but doesn't go over the top with those.
Yeah.
I think there's real compassion to his writing here. Where the naivety is for me is that he's like a dog, and if you throw a ball for a dog, will go after the ball. This is like someone's thrown 10 balls in the air, and like he wants to go for them all, and he's got so many plates spinning. So he will do things like that. Amazing scene with Bill and his wife when he kills, and then he kills himself. But I would like to see a bit of after effect of that. I'd like to see what do people think of Bill's decision to do that. I'd like to see a little more reaction from Amber as to losing custody, because it's amazing, that scene. I said it is, but it kind of gets forgotten about as the film goes on. And I think that's just him being young and naive and just so many plates in the air, which is impressive, and it's got so much ambition, but just a few of them could be a bit more finely drawn, I think.
Okay. Yeah, fair points. Fair points all around, I think. Anderson was raised in San Fernando Valley and was heavily influenced by the porn studios around him. He found his dad's video copy of porn classic The Opening of Misty Beethoven and was hooked from that day on. He was 9 years old.
Wow.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
He said, when I was a 17-year-old, I was completely immersed in watching porno in a kind of horny young boy way, but also in a sort of filmmaking way, which, you know, an education, and he was getting his kicks at the same time, which is nice.
Win-win.
It is nice, yeah.
And this was the time when he conceived and shot the Dirk Diggler story. He said the real seduction of the porn industry was in the imagined backstories, the circumstantial tragic comedies of the cast and the crew.
Yeah.
On the name Dirk Diggler, he said, you know, he wasn't too sure how he came up with it. He just came to him when he was 17 years old. He said, I think a good porn name has to have 2 G's in it. It just looks good and sounds good. And a K is pretty important as well. So there you go, if that's what you're looking for. And the moment at the end, the hilarious moment when they're unveiling the Rodriguez brothers sign and it's misspelled. That wasn't planned.
Brilliant. That's a Q.
It's a Q, the Rodriguez brothers. That's amazing.
It's supposed to be a G.
Anderson misspelled it in the screenplay and decided that it would make a funny scene, and it absolutely does.
Yeah, absolutely does.
Yeah. Incredible.
I want to fuck. It's my big dick. So everybody get ready fucking now.
Moving over to our next crew member, we're talking about cinematography by Robert Elswit. Matt, what do you think of the cinematography here?
I think it's great. I think Goodfellas is, as we've said before, the very, very big influence on the film, and I think you get that here as well, because those amazing shots like the opening we've talked about, the one at the pool where that camera's snaking around in between characters in and out of the pool, it's clear to see where it's coming from, but it's like that direction, you've still got to be able to pull it off. And this feels like he's just pulled it off without breaking a sweat. And I love the various looks that this film goes through. So it's really sunny and bright at the beginning, gets progressively dark as the film goes on. And I do love the recreation of all those porn films, that crappy film quality. They are excellently done. They really, really feel like the genuine thing. And, you know, you look at Elswit as a cinematographer, you know, the guy knows what he's doing. He did 6 films with PTA. He's done Good Night and Good Luck. He's done Nightcrawler. He did 2 of the Mission Impossible films as well. So the guy's great, and I think he just delivers everything this film needs in terms of tone, in terms of look, and in terms of camera movement. And I think what he does is he's 20 years older than PTA, but he takes all that youthful energy that PTA has, probably quite undisciplined energy as well, and he puts it on screen. But I know when Elsworth took the gig, at first his wife told him not to do it because she'd read the script, and he gave her this big speech about, oh no, it's about love, it's about family, this is going to be a classic American film. And she just looked at him and went, you're so full of shit, you just want to see the naked girls.
Busted. It's a fair cop.
Yeah.
The cinematography, I think it's dazzling. These amazing long takes, like, you know, we've said it, the one at the start, the one that tracks Little Bill when he goes on the murder-suicide spree, the one around the pool, the one right at the end that tracks Jack through the house and picks up with everybody playing Happy Families right at the end.
Yeah.
I think PTA is really flexing his muscles because, you know, he can. And in Elsworth, he's got someone who can keep up with him and bring his vision to vibrant life. And I don't think that's no mean feat, because PTA is going off like a firecracker. And for somebody just to keep up with him, I think is amazing.
Quite literally in some scenes.
The Steadicam operator, Robert Vida, said Elsworth was the dominating organizer of everything, the DP. He was very strong, and if the director said something, he would remold it.
Yeah.
Matt, did you see what I did there? We went first. We didn't let Westy kind of come in and embarrass us.
No.
But that's what he's going to do now. So, Westy, would you like to embarrass us, Elsworth, as cinematographer?
Not at all. I totally agree.
Fine.
Lovely. We'll leave it there.
No, not at all. Yeah, like you guys have said, he's a very, very grounded figure. And I think this is the role that Burt Reynolds should have had from an actor's point of view. And he does it from a cinematographer's point of view. He takes the energy of a young man. He takes the vibrance of a young man and turns it into something very mature, very watchable, very elegant, very expensive. And he could have been easily the one who turns around and has a fist fight, as opposed to Burt Reynolds. It could have been Elsworth going, you want a crane and you want to track that down. You want to do a tracking shot that's 2 minutes. You want to introduce all the what are you doing that for? But he doesn't argue, and he allows that camera to move. He allows that camera to flow. He did Hard 8, and they didn't have the money to do an anamorphic film, so they kind of just cheated it a little bit by putting the lines on for 2:30 for 2:3:1, which is an anamorphic ratio. So they get the money in. So what does he do? Anamorphic lenses. They shoot this 2:3:1 anamorphic ratio, so it looks very cinematic. There's no way to hide with it. Elsworth knows what he's doing, and I feel honestly that Elsworth was as excited as Paul Thomas Anderson shooting this film.
Very nice.
I think you get that vibe from it. He's really enjoying what he's doing. He's allowed to become, a real father figure. And I think you're talking about a family within the film. I think there's a family within the crew. And I think the amount of times that Elsworth worked with Paul Thomas Anderson after this is testament to that. It's not in any way any kind of ego or pretentiousness in the way that this is shot. It is very much somebody with open arms, welcoming in of brand new talent. And I really think, it almost brings fucking tears to my eyes to think that somebody who's 20 years older has embraced a young talent to this degree, where people don't even know who Robert Elsworth is. Everyone knows who Paul Thomas Anderson is. And that's the step back that he took on this film. And he has got every single part to play as much as Paul Thomas Anderson, if not more, in how good this film looks, in how good this film flows, in how good this film feels, and how good this film is.
Fantastic. Wonderful words. As expected.
Yes.
Cinematographer and later director Barry Sonnenfeld was bummed out when he heard that Boogie Nights was in production, because he'd always planned to make a film about his experience of being a porn DP. He actually shot 9 porn films in a 9-day stretch.
Okay.
Wow. Bang, bang, bang.
Holy shit.
In more ways than one.
9 bangs.
That's not an MP. That's a YP. Your problem. Come up with the money and I'll give you the tapes. That's it.
Okay. All right, now you're talking above my head, all right? I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay?
Finally, as part of the crew, we're talking about the music in the film. Soundtrack, Westy.
Yes.
You got the touch. Go for it.
You got the power. Yeah. This has got to be one of the top 5 soundtracks of all time, hasn't it?
Classic Westy.
In the way that Scorsese does it so well, in the way that Tarantino does it so well, in the way that we spoke about it countless times on these classic episodes, and how easily this could have just been a cliche, how easily this could have been an eye roll or a yawn. You know, like You Sexy Thing by Hot Chocolate.
Yeah.
Right, I'm doing it. It's 70s, 1977. It's based on, you know, the porn industry. Yeah, do you want Hot Chocolate? You know, You Sexy Thing. The alarm bells would go off in my head if
Definitely
that was.
not. Yeah,
I can't. No, there's no chance. There's no way that's going to work.
Yeah.
And you just kind of go Afternoon Delight by the Starland Vocal Band. Do you want that in there? No, that's not going to work. That's too. It's too on the nose. It's too cheesy. Every single song in this film is almost like a masterclass, like Scorsese does in Casino, where it just basically marries the scene. Every song marries the scene. It marries the narrative. It marries the tone. It marries the characters. It does everything. You know, a fight with his mom kicks him out the house. He runs out the house. He goes to Jack's house where he's been invited. And then you've got that incredible version of Mama Told Me Not to Come by, you know, Three Dog Night. Not the fucking Stereophonics Tom Jones. That can fuck off. This version. And it's just Mama Told Me Not to Come. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
And so much like if anyone else had done this, it would just be almost like, oh God, it's tired. I feel a bit sick about how obvious that is, but it works. It's just one of them soundtracks where, like Matt mentioned on the Casino episode, where he said, I love this soundtrack when I'm watching the film, and it's the same. This is basically exactly the same as Matt, but this is my version. Is I love this soundtrack when I'm watching the film, but if I listen to the soundtrack, I get bored very quickly. Just independently by itself, it doesn't really work for me because I've heard these songs a million times and the cliches upon themselves. Yeah, okay, they all work, but when you put them in this film and they just have this energy and it builds the film. For him to pick these and to play them when he does, and for it not to be a cliche, is nothing short of a fucking miracle, and it really works. It's amazing.
It is amazing, Matt. What do you think?
Yeah, I just don't know how he gets away with You Sexy Thing in this. That's that should have been the first one you cut. Yeah, it works, and I can't explain it. The whole thing, I mean, I've been humming these songs to myself the last few days, all different ones. It's a glorious era to revisit. Huge wealth of songs to choose from, and I like how he does pick massive numbers. So, you know, opening with Best of My Love at the beginning, ending with Living Thing at the end. But the songs in here that, to me anyway, which were much more obscure. And, you know, I mentioned Lonely Boy by Andrew Gold. I love Fooled Around and Fell in Love by Elvin Bishop.
Yes, that's a great moment as well. Yeah.
When just having sex in the driveway, that's an amazing song. Yeah. Jesse's Girl, obviously, we'll get to that whole scene later. I just think great songs used amazingly well. And sometimes you just think it's one of those soundtracks. It speaks for itself. Yeah. You know, just the amount of great scenes that are great because of the songs in them. And I know when he got the rights for Living Thing, Jeff Lynne asked for a preview, which PTA was really nervous about in case he didn't like it and took the rights back. So when he was screening it, he sat a few rows behind him and he was just watching the back of Jeff Lynne's head, trying to gauge the reaction. He said when the film ends and Living Thing kicks in, apparently just Jeff Lynne's, both of his arms, they just shot up in triumph and he walked out. That's when he knew he was sold. That's the way
to do it.
Yeah, because Jeff Lynne's against violence and sex in movies, right? But if you hear Living Thing, you think of a massive dick. That'll do. Yeah, you can use it, Paul. Not a problem. I can handle that. That's my song, you know.
You would expect a film called Boogie Nights to include the disco classic of the same name by Heatwave, but Heatwave lead singer Johnny Wilder Jr. was a devout Christian and said that the song was about dancing, not porn. Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
It's not wrong.
That's fine.
So PTA is all over the crew with his writing and his song choices, but he found a DP in Robert Elswit that really spoke his language.
Absolutely.
The end.
Picking up where we left off, we're looking at the sequence where Jack conducts an experiment with Roller Girl called On the Lookout, an inventive name. I think he just made that up on the spot. This is cross-cut with Dirk being picked up at a drive-thru and Buck getting in deep with donuts. That isn't a metaphor.
That could have gone very wrong if you Yeah.
When you said cross-cut there, I thought you were going to say something very different.
Yeah. Tender hooks here. Are we going to finish this soon? We've done so well so far.
A few mistakes along the way.
Yeah. But you'll never hear.
So I'm going to start off with Roller Girl. And there's a really ominous presence in this scene with those bells of doom ringing in the soundtrack.
Yeah.
We know something's up. Roller girl trying and failing to be sexy with those pouty glances at the camera. Awful.
Yeah, horrible.
And it all gets uneasy when the guy says that he used to go to school with Roller Girl. That's him right at the start of the film in the class.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, he went to school there, but he's in there. And despite how uncomfortable and uneasy it all feels, Jack's dialogue is hilarious. And he's saying things like, don't just ram it in there. This isn't a hole in the wall. This is Roller Girl. Be respectful. This is Roller Girl.
Yeah.
But you know something's going to go wrong, and things really do change when the car stops. And the footage goes from being the handheld like film, like the stock film, to actually part of this film. It switches, and the guy says that Jack's films are shit now. And that really touches a nerve with him. And the reason that he explodes into this geyser of violence is because he knows what the kid's saying is true.
Yeah.
He's really touched a nerve. He's making shit films. He's sold out. He's making video. The art's gone out of his work. And it's really, really disturbing when Roller Girl slamming her skates into his head while he's helpless.
Yeah.
Horrendous. And talk about Roller Girl for a moment. Taking the role did seem to backfire on Heather Graham, who couldn't get a gig in Hollywood for a couple of years after this. And she even considered taking a role in a softcore erotic film before being cast in the second Austin Powers film. Things got that bad. And in my head, she kind of just disappeared from public view. A real shame, because I think she's fantastic. She's really fantastic in this. But that switch from the character, from this sweet and innocent, bubblegum girl, to this monster that she unleashes on this guy, and she's being dragged out in the car, fuck you, and I hope you die, and all this kind of stuff. That is chilling stuff.
Yeah. Brilliantly done, though. It's totally believable. It's totally believable.
It is,
and the role she got in Austin Powers was a parody of this one, really.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Felicity Shagwell.
It's when it all goes a bit sour, this part of the film, isn't it? And it is a bit hard to watch, because not one character really gets away with anything positive or pleasant that happens. And I think when Dirk gets picked up by Joe in the truck, you just think, oh, right, okay. And it seems quite genuine, and you think, oh, you fall into a false sense of security where you just think, because the film has been quite safe to that point, but you see the violence from Roller Girl, you see what's happening there, and it kind of cross-cuts between the two. And you think, oh, Dirk's just not up for it anymore, and he's just, he's past his best, and you just think, oh, that's as bad as it's going to get. And I didn't see this coming, and I didn't again when I watched it again. Actually, I totally forgot about it. And it does take you from left field. It's just, it's horrible the way that switches, and that tone switches, and you get put through that. But the worst thing about the whole thing is that Dirk's just back where he was. It's $10, it's $5.
Yeah,
and he had this whole empire, and he kind of ruined it for himself. And you just think, well, is there any coming back from this? The way that it's shot, the way Paul Thomas Anderson puts you in that truck, you're right next to him. You're in there. It's quite claustrophobic. And then when it kicks back and it fires, it nosedives a little bit too hard.
Do you think?
I think so.
Right.
Personally, I think it just nosedives a little bit too hard and then comes back. But to me, it could be a bit more of a subtle dive for one of the. It could nosedive for one of the characters. That's fine. But when everyone starts getting hit at once, to me, it just seems like a really dark, shadowy, kind of real murky part of the film that's quite swampy for me. I don't really feel like there's any point. I don't feel there's any retribution for it. I don't think anyone learns anything by it, because they just end up back where they were anyway. So I think it's just a bit of a kick in the guts, because Thomas Anderson knows he can pull that emotion, because you've been with that character, you've been with all of these characters, and he's just like, oh, well, let's just give them a kicking and let you watch them have a kicking. But there's no real point in that, because it's just going to be fine anyway.
There's no retribution. There's no consequence, is there?
Yeah, there's no consequence. There's no retribution. There's no redemption. There's no point. Nobody learns anything by it, because they just go back to where they were from. So for me, it's a real dip, this part of the film, and it really takes it takes a few kind of notches off for me. It's a bit too low. It's a bit of a low blow for me. It's a bit of a sickener. So this is the part of the film that really kind of just pulls me back a little bit and spoils it a little bit, to be honest.
Okay. Hey.
It's interesting what Westy's saying here, because there's a scene after this that I thought was going to end really badly for the character, and just went, Buck buys those donuts.
Me too, yeah.
So I was just on edge throughout, because I thought, oh, I know where this is going. Soon as that Robert Anderson goes slow-mo, first time I saw, I thought, oh, God, he's just going to be out of there, isn't he?
Yeah.
But then he doesn't. But then it goes even worse because obviously the robber gets taken out. The guy sitting with a gun, he takes him up. He gets taken out by the robber and he accidentally takes the cashier out. And all this carnage is happening while Silent Night is playing over this section because it's taking place over Christmas. And then when Buck is just standing there like covered in blood, he's in his white suit. So it's an amazing image. But I was like, and he's looking at the cash on the floor. I was like, oh no. Yeah. I know what's going to happen. He's going to take the money, but the cops are going to show up because they've heard the gunshots, and he's a black guy, the scene of the crime, and he's got the money in his hands, and they're just going to gun him down, no questions asked, and there's going to be a real sickener. So I like it how it doesn't do that. He actually gets away scot-free with this money. And, you know, I definitely agree with Westy's point that this whole section is quite grim, but this, I think, is the positive note that you need, because before this, you've had the scene in the bank where he gets turned down unjustly for the money, which has been really harsh on him. Yeah. So, you know, which is nonsense when you think about it, just this moral judgment of the job that he's had. So
they can't be seen to be doing business with somebody like him.
Yeah, which is again racial, and there's that undertone as well. It's not necessarily where he's being from.
Yeah, of course it is. So to see Buck get this money, and obviously his wife heavily pregnant as well, which just adds to the tension. God, is he going to get killed before his child is born? For this scene to go completely the opposite way I was expecting it to, it turns out to be a real highlight, actually, because it just starts off so ominously. But it ends up with a big kind of like sigh of relief, like, phew, he actually got away with it. Thank God for that.
Yeah, it is a big relief.
To me, he's in a desperate situation. When he leaves the car and she's pregnant and he goes into the donut shop, I think he's going to hold that place up. He's desperate. I feel like he's walking, he's looking at the donuts, say, "Oh, I'll have that one. Oh, that's for Christmas. All right, then give us the money." I expect him to be like,
right.
And I think if there was an undertone where he was going to do that, but had the gun in his pocket and didn't, and someone else did it anyway, that for me would be joyous. Yes, great.
Yeah, and I do get you what you mean. There are no consequences for Roller Girl. There's no consequences for what happens to Dirk, and no consequences to Buck either.
Yeah.
I do like that, like the previous scene, it all cross-cuts, and the energy from Roller Girl feeds into the Dirk scene, which both feed into the Buck scene, because you know something terrible is going to happen, and you think, I certainly think that Buck's going to go.
Yeah.
Because of what's going on in those two scenes. And also, better still, that they all happen in the same location. The aftermath of all of those two scenes are picked up when Buck comes into the donut shop, which I think is a smart move. Very nice.
It's Cosmo. He's Chinese.
In our final section, we're headed the long way down as Dirk, Reed and Todd mastermind a drug deal with silken bathrobed lunatic Rahad Jackson, and all hell breaks loose. We're obviously talking about the drug deal gone wrong. Westy, kick us off.
I mean, it's just great from the get-go, isn't it? Just the setup for this whole scene is just fantastic. When they're sat around the table and that camera is just spinning, you get vibes of the planning from Reservoir Dogs when they're all just sat around the table and the camera's kind of going around. Well, countless other films where you've just got that spinning camera where there's just working on certain things. But the dialogue here works really well. I think Thomas Jane, when he's like, he's got more money than God. It's just fucking great line. And he's going to fill it up with baking powder. He's not going to try it. And you just think, oh, hold on a second. This is quite flawed from the start.
It's a crap plan.
Probably is going to try it. Like, this is a shit plan. And then it spins round, and then they get more and more convinced, and he's like, look, I know what I'm doing, trust me. And you just don't trust this character whatsoever. But even like predating this, there's a great sequence that's just like a montage. It was so well shot by Elsbeth, where Thomas Jane just keeps coming into the room and then it snaps pans to them, and they're just like, they sit up and they're in the same position but different clothes every time. Like, where are you from? They close up on the knife, and it's just all these different things. Like, you can tell he's not to be trusted, and it kind of builds that. And then that spiraling around the table just builds the tension, ramps it up. And then when they arrive at the house and he's like, he's got the gun. And like, he's like, have you got a gun as well? He's like, no. He's like, shut up,
so
man.
Funny.
Yeah, just be quiet. And then that's where the humor comes into it. And you just think, right, okay, I've witnessed what's going to happen. Surely this is going to be bad. But at the same time, he injects that comedy and carries it forward into probably one of the most memorable sequences of the whole film.
Yeah.
And one of the most memorable performances of the whole film in Alfred Molina. I think the whole thing is just absolutely brilliant from start to finish.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, I just want to talk about Alfred Molina here, like forever.
Yeah.
I'll be here forever. I can't get enough of this performance. I mean, take it like the actor is this mild-mannered English fella, and he inhabits this role like very few have ever known. I put him up there with Oldman's Drexel from True Romance.
Yeah,
He's amazing.
Yeah.
Sean Penn and John Turturro were both considered for the role. I love both of those guys.
Yeah.
But Molina is so unbelievably good. I just wouldn't change anything about it.
I want a Netflix spin-off.
Who doesn't?
That would be amazing.
Laugh out loud funny, like when he's doing the full band mime thing for Sister Christian. Incredible. I fucking love that song. Great.
Yeah. Hadn't heard the songs until 3 days before.
Neither of the songs.
Learn them. Yeah, brilliant.
He's completely out of control when he's playing Russian roulette, and things have gone downhill quickly for Dirk
think I won't
and
do it?
Reed
You think
here.
I won't do it?
that image of him laughing with a gun, hilarious. I love when he's talking about his mixtapes. He dislikes the order of albums, and then it goes silent, and a firecracker goes off. The first time he acknowledges it, and his explanation is priceless. It's Cosmo. Like, don't worry about it. It's Cosmo. He's Chinese.
Way he whispers it. Yeah. And then hugs him. Goes up and hugs him. And he's still lighting
So
them.
that explains everything. He's Chinese.
That's fine.
It's brilliant though. Again, we're talking about tapes and how they rule. And like he's like, I don't like anything telling me what I should listen to when I should listen to it. And then the tape stops and then plays the side B. It goes on to side B because it's got to stop somehow. You've got to be dictated to somehow.
Yeah.
And even the tape has to stop and then tell you when it's going to start again, which is fucking brilliant.
He pulls his face when it stops. He's like, wow, what are you going to do?
He's like, this fucking thing. Yeah.
Wahlberg, Riley, and Jane's startle reaction to the firecrackers going off are real. The reason that Molina doesn't react to them is because he's got an earpiece in, playing the music and the dialogue, but muffling everything out.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's fantastic.
PTA said, that much porno and cocaine, it's bound to lead to Sister Christian. Which is fair enough.
Yeah, it is absolutely fair enough.
I mentioned that Robert Downey Sr. plays a part in the film, and this is the scene where the guy who's dropping the firecrackers is lifted from a moment in his film. Putney Swope, a character in that, does the same thing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And PTA used the word swope from that film for Don Cheadle's character in this.
Oh, okay.
But then Jesse's Girl comes on, and he's dancing around, adding lyrics, getting the real lyrics wrong. Just an incredible sight in his bathrobe. Incredible.
The lyrics he adds as well.
Insane.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. I wish I had Jesse's.
and like when it all kicks off, the bodyguard's down and he comes blazing out of his room with a shotgun, crazed. Just my favorite performance in a film of great performances.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
Wow.
Actually, the scene was cut. There was a 3-hour cut of the film initially, and there was a part of the scene cut where the cops arrive, and he keeps on getting bigger and bigger arsenal of weapons until the end he gets like an anti-tank gun.
Blaze of glory. Like Scarface. Scarface to Jesse's Girl. That would be fucking brilliant. I'm so jealous.
So jealous with Jesse's Girl. The whole scene was influenced by a similar incident that happened involving porn actor John Holmes in 1981. Holmes and a gang of mafia heavies reportedly broke into a drug house and murdered 3 people in an act of retaliation, known as the Wonderland Murders.
Yeah.
Holmes and the gang were later tried and acquitted. It's a fascinating story if you want to look further into it.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, horrendous.
Oh, awful.
But yeah, I mean, Sister Christian. Can't get enough of it.
99 red balloons coming on. Just the intro. Doesn't even kick in. Just the intro, just until he comes outside.
And then it cuts when they go outside and the shotgun, the window blows up. Fuck.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, because after this is when it all starts to wind down, isn't it? And I think for all this huge, sprawling cast, multiple storylines, it ties them all up so beautifully. And specifically with Dirk and Jack, and I don't think Wahlberg's ever had a better scene than after the deal goes wrong and he gets back to Jack's and he just apologizes and he just asks for help because he's at rock bottom, nearly thrown his life away, literally. All that ego, all that coke is gone. And he's just that little kid again we saw at the beginning getting upset because his mother's tearing pictures off the wall. And I just love Jack's reaction as well, because there's no bitterness. He's not holding a grudge about this. It's just, you're forgiven. Come get a hug, kid. You're back home.
Yeah.
It's where you've always belonged. I think that's really beautifully played by the pair of them. And then you go from that into the final montage of the film, which is God Only Knows, which that song, I mean, it's almost a cheat to use that song.
All the songs are almost a cheat, aren't they? That's the point.
I mean, I think Paul McCartney said it best. He said it's one of the few songs that would use him to tease every time, which I totally get.
Wonderful.
And when it all comes together, I think it's only then that you realise, God, I've got so much affection for all these characters.
Absolutely.
And, you know, when you sort of see like how their stories have ended, so you see Buck has finally got his store. Reed's got his magic show on stage.
Yeah. So fucking brilliant.
Naughty.
Whoops.
Maurice has got his club life, even though the name's spelt wrong.
Yeah.
And the bit that really stands out for me, though, it's just so nice to see Scotty there. And he's happy, and he's filming the birth of Buck and Jesse's son. Because it would have been awful. He's right in there, like. But it would have been awful if the last thing you saw of him was that shot of him sobbing in the car, and you never saw him again.
Yeah.
You see him, and you're like, oh, he's all right. He's got his friends. He's going to get through this. You know, even the Colonel gets to the end. He deserves being made someone's bitch in prison. So,
absolutely.
This montage,
it works out.
Yeah, ties it all up beautifully, and then you see a massive cock.
But that scene you spoke about, Matt, you know, when Dirk goes back, or Eddie goes back and sees Jack and apologizes and asks for help, like, how did Burt Reynolds see that and not like it?
Yeah, exactly.
How did he watch that and just, I don't like this film? Like, come on.
Yeah. It's got so much heart right at the end there.
I think it must be an ego thing. He must have saw that and go, you know what, that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. I don't think he wanted to back down, did he, from...
Yeah.
Basically, the
bravado.
He'd made his
old
bravado,
school Hollywood bravado, isn't it? It's just a real shame.
So everyone is back together, one weird, messed up, dysfunctional family, and we finally get Dirk's big reveal. 13 inches is a tough load.
Looks normal to me.
Reception and awards.
Despite the studio's demands, PTA's original cut of Boogie Nights was 3 hours long. New Line co-founder Bob Shea made his own 2-hour cut of the film and test screened it in Pasadena. Anderson was so enraged that he walked among the viewers and told them how shit the film was and that they were all going to hate it. He did this to encourage low test scores, which the film got.
Brilliant. Jumped up little prick. Brilliant.
They struck a compromise on the runtime of the film by cutting some big scenes out, one of which is where it's revealed that Dirk's parents have been killed in a car crash by his porn rival, Johnny Doe.
Yeah. Too much.
No, not
too
not
complicated.
Necessary. Yeah.
Totally not necessary.
Despite the cuts, PTA had to submit the film to the MPAA 18 times before getting an R rating. They were threatened to slap it with an NC-17, and their main problem were the scenes with Little Bill's wife. They complained that there was a lot of humping and talking at the same time, and which they didn't care for at all.
Well, they just wanted one or the other.
Unrealistic.
One or the other. So they reshot the scene so she could do a couple of thrusts, then talk, then go back to thrusting.
Wow.
They were happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, listeners.
Yeah. But when it finally got its release, it was a big hit considering the subject matter. On a budget of $15 million, it returned $43.1 million worldwide. Not in the billions that Titanic got that year, or even the $250 million that Bean returned that year. We've referenced it a couple of times already. $250 million. What the fuck?
Oh, God.
But still, a hell of a lot more than expected by a rookie director about the porn industry. A period piece as well.
Yeah.
Critically, it got a universal acclaim. The Observer said, not since the mysteriously reclusive Terrence Malick has there been such an explosion of sheer talent on the American movie scene.
Yeah.
Entertainment Weekly said, Boogie Nights, an epic tale of porn, pleasure, and excess, offers a purer hit of exhilaration than any movie this year. And finally, our final time with Ebert.
Oh.
Roger, what did he give it out of 4?
3.5 cocks.
How many cocks for you, Matt?
3 for me.
You can take 3, can you?
One for each roll.
I don't know where the third one is. Roger gave it a big 4 out of 4.
Oh, 4 cocks.
Yeah, just the 4. He said, Boogie Nights is an epic of the low road, a classic Hollywood story set in the shadows instead of the spotlights, but containing the same ingredients: fame, envy, greed, talent, sex, and money. He loved it. Couldn't get enough of it.
Great.
Cool.
All 13 inches. And now, Boogie Nights has an IMDb score of 7.9 out of 10 and 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow. Big news.
Yeah.
Everyone loved it, and that's consistent with awards season as well, where Boogie Nights got nominated at a number of ceremonies. PTA, Reynolds, and Julianne Moore were nominated at the Oscars. Moore was nominated at the Golden Globes, and Reynolds picked up a Golden Globe for Best Supporting. He later sold his award for $21,000, taking his dislike of the film to the grave.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. Yeah.
So just one major award. I'm guessing that the subject matter was a little too hot to handle for the Academy.
Yeah.
All the Right Movies ranking.
We have our very own 13-inch big reveal here. The huge ATRM rating. Our final section ever. Big news.
Yeah.
Matt, summary and score out of 10 for Boogie Nights.
I've really enjoyed going back to Boogie Nights. There's a real joy to it. It's full of energy, and it's definitely the kind of film you watch and you go, well, Jesus Christ, this guy's someone to watch, isn't he? I mean, how does he do all this at that age? Because to put together that cast, to match it with that soundtrack, to keep hold of all these storylines, to fill it with such creativity and amazing cinematography, but above all else, to put all these things in a film about pornography. And like I said, when we're talking about the direction, it never once feels seedy or unpleasant in that respect. I mean, it doesn't back away from the consequences to some people's actions here and some people's choices, but I think the tone of the script is so well judged, which is why it's so rewatchable, and also because performances across the board are just excellent. It's one of the best acted films of the 90s, I would say.
Yes,
so
easy.
The only flaw for me, and it's a very personal thing at how you look at a film, is I think I have to look at this from the perspective of who Paul Thomas Anderson is now. And I look at this film and I enjoy so much, but I know he's got There Will Be Blood in 2 films' time. And I know he's got Inherent Vice and even Licorice Pizza. Yeah. Those films for me are they're his voice. That's who he is as a person. Like I said when I talked about him in The Director, this is a film by an incredibly talented mimic who just wants to show you that he can do what Scorsese can do. And that's fine. And he does it brilliantly. But ultimately, I just think because there was more to come from Paul Thomas Anderson and better to come from him, I have to deduct a mark. So it gets a 9 from me.
Still big.
Yeah,
it is still big.
Not 13 inches, but still big.
But I'd be happy with it.
How we were 9 inches.
Yeah. Wouldn't complain.
Yeah, fucking right.
Westy, what about you?
Yeah, very much the same as Matt. I mean, I feel like this is one of them films that when I come back to it, it's just, like I've said, I have got issues with it. I did thoroughly enjoy it. It zips along. It's got so much confidence. It's got so much energy. It's got so much vibrance. It's got so much confidence. It's just brilliant to have somebody of that age at that time in Hollywood making something like this and just going, this is what I want to make, fuck you. And we need more people like that now. We need more people to stand up, especially now with the access that we've got to filmmaking equipment. You can make it on your phone. Just you need somebody to just go, no, this is what I want to make, fuck you. And it's just, you can tell he believed in the material, tell he believed in himself, more importantly, which I think is what anyone should take from this film, is that self-belief that Paul Thomas Anderson has. No matter how big the crew, no matter how intricate the camera moves, no matter how of an ensemble of a cast it was, he was not fazed by any of it, and that needs to be applauded, and that will always be applauded by me every single step of the way. But it does fall down in the story element. It does fall down in the content of where this is going, what the characters are doing, what they learn from it, what the moral compass is. It doesn't seem to have one. To me, it's very much style over substance. And like Matt said, I'd go to Magnolia after this and say, that's him. Right, here we go.
That's a voice. That's a completely original film. This, like Matt said perfectly, is a mimic of like who he wants to be, and he's not quite there yet. It's still a really enjoyable film, but for me, it's not one that I'll go back to again and again, and I probably won't for another couple of years. And I like to go on a journey when I watch a film, and I like to feel moved and changed by the end of it, and I don't by the end of Boogie Nights. I do stylistically, I do technically, and for me, that's the reason this will probably get one of the lowest marks I've given anything, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, hey, that's fine. Coming to it with relative fresh eyes, like I said at the top, I found a lot more than I anticipated, having watched it about 3 or 4 times in the last week or so. I think the performances, like you say, Matt, top-notch across the board, an ensemble piece, and I really love an ensemble cast, and this is really one of the best. Soundtrack the same. PTA is an incredible talent, and you can see that from the first reel to the last. I think his judgment of Tony is very, very good. It's equal parts hilarious, sinister, heartbreaking. It's a film I will now rewatch many times, I think. But I'm not going to give it top marks because there are those nitpicks that I mentioned in the screenplay, and I can't help thinking that it veers too closely into being derivative of Scorsese. Just that shade too much for me.
Yeah.
So Boogie Nights gets a huge 9 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
Fair scores, I think.
I think so, yeah.
All round. Yeah. Nothing
outrageous there.
Nothing outrageous. Well, wait until the Patreon scores.
Okay. 5.
Our 4th score for Boogie Nights comes from our ever dependable and much loved Patreon supporters.
Yep.
They've been voting in their droves, but I've picked out some comments first, so here they come. Final time, and thank you everybody for voting and commenting on every episode that we do.
Yes, thank you guys.
Justin Fellas said, virtuoso period piece direction and cinematography, great performances and cast which reminded us of how cool Burt Reynolds can be. And best of all, a killer soundtrack which manages to include Jethro Tull and the 1986 Transformers animated film power ballad You Got the Touch. 10 out of 10.
Transformers took it over the top there, I bet.
Dean Jones said, one of those films that could go on forever and I wouldn't get bored. Expertly made with an amazing balance of comedy and drama. Has to be a 10 for me.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Andy Freeman, less of a review, more a comment on his life, I suppose.
Okay.
He said, PTA made this incredibly confident film when he was only 26. What have I done with my life? That's it.
Wow.
No review. No score. No score. No.
It's all right, mate. We all feel the same.
We all feel the same. Don't worry about it. We're not all Paul Thomas Anderson.
No, it's fine.
What the fuck have we done about we're talking about his life?
15 years older than him when he was doing this. And finally, a cold cup of coffee from a new patron. This is Jeff Stanchik. Jeff said, Boogie Nights is slimy and erratic. Thin story all around. Perfect characterization of the universe it is filmed in. Not a fan of Wahlberg, but Alfred Molina's scenes kept me tuned in. 5 out of 10.
Oof.
Wow.
Boom.
Damn.
Hitting us where it hurts.
Yeah.
Gotta have your critics.
Yeah.
A slight mixed bag there, so taking all votes into consideration, what do you think Boogie Nights averaged out of 10 from our patrons, fellas?
9?
I'll go 8.5.
Oh, Westy, the final time you got it right. 9 out of 10.
Yes.
Very nice.
What an achievement.
Well, the final time, I thought there might have been a bit more fanfare than that, to be honest.
No, it's good. I mean, yeah, fantastic. I'm not going to blow my own trumpet, though, am I? 13 inches
We're
of it.
13 inches. You could.
Yeah, it is. I got you first.
Not with your back, anyway.
That's what the Zimmer frame's for. Get a bit of leverage.
Wow. I don't know how many of these are going to make the cut, but hopefully all of them. It's the last episode. We can get away with murder.
Gives a shit. This is what we're going to lose patrons on.
There were no consequences for Roland Girl or Buck Swope. There should be no consequences for us.
Exactly. It's the Boogie Nights of a podcast. We can do anything.
So with all 4 scores combined, Boogie Nights' overall score is 35 out of 40.
Fair.
That's very fair, I think.
Very good score.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah.
To check that out and how it fares against all the other films that we've covered on the podcast, go to alltherightmovies.com/leaderboard.
Yeah.
As mentioned, you can sign up to be an ATRM Patreon supporter by visiting patreon.com/alltherightmovies. Get access to all of the podcasts that we've produced and more besides as we transition to YouTube and bring you hours of outstanding video content.
Oh, yes.
You could even say they are excellent.
You could say that.
Yes. You will be saying that.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes.
So as we said, this is our last episode of the podcast, but we will be back in 2 weeks where you'll be able to hear a highlights show from the podcast from the last 3 years, almost 3 years.
Wow.
That should be almost too funny, I would imagine.
Yeah, that would probably be the best episode.
I know, most downloaded. We'll get loads of advertising. Shit, lads, we're going to do this again. And also, get in touch if you've got some highlights from our podcasts over the last 3 years. Then get in touch. You can get in touch with us on Twitter, all social media platforms. You can get in touch with us on our website as well, and let us know what parts you think we should conclude in the highlights reel.
Yes, please do.
Be
because
fun.
as you're listening, just if there's anything that stands out, because we're going to have to go through everything. I can't remember anything I've said in the last 3 years, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah. and it's going to be down to me to cull it. So if everybody could just get involved,
in, please. Give Luke a break. That'd be fine. Yeah.
And after that, we will be putting out that interview with John Doe. That will come out after, and then that will be it. We'll be moving everything to YouTube. That's youtube.com/all the right movies. We'd love it if you can join us over there.
Yes, we will see you over there, and you will see us over there.
Absolutely, yeah. So not the end of an era, but the end of a chapter in the fascinating history of all the right movies. We're moving to pastures new, and we'd encourage everybody to come on the ride with us.
Yes, please. We're moving over.
We're still going to be the same, though.
We're still, it's just going to be the same old magic. There's magic in those tapes, and there's magic in those videos.
Exactly.
We're going to get a deal, and no one needs them tapes.
We're guaranteed a record contract.
Of course we are. We'll just repeat the same bit over and over again. We'll be fine.
For our patrons, we will be back with our Patreon exclusive double feature podcast for the last time, where we'll be discussing 2 great films. The poll for that is live as we record now, so it's not confirmed what the films will be, but very far in the lead, surprisingly, Skyfall and Knives Out.
Oh, nice. Great.
Really? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we are changing to YouTube, our presence won't change on social media. As always, we are at AT Right Movies on Twitter, at @all_the_right movies on Instagram. There's our Facebook group. Search for that. Join that. Lively discussions. Great guys. We're on there.
Please do.
Yes, loads of stuff.
And of course, our website is alltherightmovies.com. And that is a wrap, fellas. Almost 3 years and 121 podcasts in total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for being the best audience we could hope for. Hopefully you'll join us on YouTube. Until the next time, everyone, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for listening. We didn't think anybody would, so we are as surprised as you are.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
3 years, that's incredible. So thank you all.
Yeah,
everyone.
Thank you so much.